Hey guys.
Welcome to the podcast. While everyone is tuning in, we're doing a bit of a pre-show where we just talk about dumb shit. Uh, Lego was just furious at my Twitter banner for a little while, so it's all good. I should probably get rid of this picture of Odog's message. Okay, hold on. There we go. Actually, you can see the people talking.
You guys like Unknown?
God fucking damn it! 40 seconds in. 40 seconds in. I made
I
a.
really like that. Actually, I don't know if I like or hate him. That space pod guy. The other morning, I was sleeping like in my bed, like normal, because it's like 6 o'clock in the morning, and I get a call, and my phone never like brings a notification to my screen when I get a Discord call, never, but it did this time, and I don't know why. So you know what I did? I was like, okay, I'm gonna pick this up. It was John Spacepod asking me my thoughts on the Ottoman Empire.
What are they? Elaborate.
You can't just mute after saying that. You gotta tell us what your thoughts are.
I was half asleep. Also, my sister just walked in.
Ah,
I'm eating a cookie.
just everything's going wrong for you, man.
Wow. A cookie at this hour?
Honey, this is the second one.
Oh, a question for me. What's my favorite number? Um, I like the number 3.
Three's a good pick. Three's a good pick.
2 is a close second.
You can't just say wrong answer. Like,
Snickers,
He can do whatever he wants.
trumpet.
Question for me. Make cinema real? Yeah, sure.
I'm just gonna quickly say, even though I said I wouldn't, just quick our awards update. Chasing up on
No.
stuff. Last push expected within the next month or two.
My favorite moment is
actually
when
will
Dream
happen.
promised him a card. Laugh.
Eh.
Taran, I will happily steal views from Scott Perry any day of the week.
Okay.
It's not a contest.
Just an update on how I'm doing right now. This chair that I've been sitting on, I don't know if you can hear me creak it like this. It will break during this podcast probably. Also, John, before I joined the server to play Conjure Season 1, Diana B told me to not record. This is a true story. No, Will, I wouldn't because I am afraid of what would happen.
What's the worst that could happen?
Kanako makes it again.
I mean, it's like
Yeah.
it's about that time of year again for the top 100 intros.
I think that series was.
Hannah, Bobby has a question for you.
Little Guys for Life, of course, Little Guys for Life. Just before we went live, I was suggesting a funny little boys episode of the podcast.
Tell him who's on it.
Well, we got Bobby, we got Jar of Cats, and we got Rocky. It would be awesome.
Oh, I didn't respond the first time while I wasn't looking at the screen this time. Doing all right. Tired.
We ate at a diner. That was the only joint we ate at.
People are asking so many fucking questions. The Q&A at the end is gonna have fucking nothing. Everyone's blowing their load on questions now.
Ew, don't say that.
It has multiple connotations just because you took it
No,
wrong.
you know what you did.
Just because you decided to take it in a bad route.
It's not my fault.
I think it is. I'm gonna put the blame on you on this one.
We don't need a reason to blame you. We're just gonna do it anyways.
Oh, my food.
Also, while we're here, chat, audio fine. I fucked around with the values a bit. Might sound shite. Just double check, see if it's fucking sounds good. I could turn people up as well if they're too quiet, because I know Bacon was quiet as fuck in the last one.
Okay, I'm sorry. I've been trying to hold
Wait.
back, but I have to
Okay.
address the elephant in the room. Aaron,
Yeah.
Lampoon Season 2.
Mm-hmm.
You're deaf.
Mm-hmm.
Explain.
My teammate wasn't with me, and I died.
I'm sorry to hear that. GG.
GG.
Wait, so was I not able to be heard previously?
No, we could hear you.
Okay.
Okay.
I think people just missed
Kel just thought he didn't hear me answer the question that he asked. My microphone has a knob for its volume, and it's like really sensitive to hit, so I can accidentally turn it all the way down, which is really stupid.
By the way,
Go show you now.
Yeah.
hello.
Welcome to the
Hi.
Hello.
pre-show, where everyone in the world is asking all their questions already.
Oh, great. How many have we answered so far?
Too many. It's just rapid fire lightning, just questions all the time.
All right, sounds great.
Just a reminder currently of the docket. We're doing a bit of a pre-show, probably for about 5 more minutes. Then we're going to be getting into an RR roundup. A bit of a different one. We have some plans. We're going to do a shortened roundup this time around. After that, we're going to be talking about RR production for hopefully a long time, because this group of people is much more geared to talking about production behind the scenes on rounds. And then, as per last time, we'll be ending off the podcast with a RR Q&A of just general questions from chat. As of right now, though, we're just kind of fucking around, just chilling for a bit before we get into recorded rounds. No one answered Taran. Just gonna let that scroll by without any answers.
Oh, that's rough.
Oh.
Oh yeah, before we get into the
So I'm
roundup
not
thing.
seeing Torrent's question. This is rough. Oh. Young wizards. That's the only correct answers.
What?
Russell. By the way, I changed my picture because you guys can't see.
To answer, no, Wax.
And then before we get to the roundup, I'm gonna reread through the mythical game mode, just so I can remind myself and keep it fresh in my memory. Because I think I need to, considering it had its own fucking information post. Oh my god, there's so much text.
It's so cool to see so many people in the chat. Like I wasn't expecting such a large amount of people to come out and listen to this.
Yeah,
Yeah, why
it's
are
kinda
so many
surprising.
people watching?
There were 39 people watching.
Yeah,
Why does anyone care?
You're wasting your afternoons.
Like that's insane.
Okay.
You had a Twitch Prime.
You can't Twitch Prime to me. Don't advertise
No,
it. You can't Twitch Prime to me.
No,
Okay.
Fancy was advertising me.
Oh, don't know. No shilling. No personal shilling. No? Bad.
I
I actually haven't tweeted that this is live yet. Let me do that.
did.
Live now.
All right. Hey,
Good
A
shout,
viewer-
Julia. Good shout.
a viewer in the chat has sent me something he'd like my Discord avatar to be.
Is this how the
So-
cameos are gonna happen from now on?
No. This is not how the cameo. No, but this is a favor to a friend. Okay, there we go.
What is that?
That would be my friend Dan.
Dan. That's Dan.
All right, respect.
Ugh. Joey, I have a question for you.
Oh no.
When do I get to play Red versus Blue on your server again?
Whenever someone bothers to host it.
Okay.
The last few times it's been hosted was not that enjoyable.
Ah.
Not by me. I mean, the players didn't enjoy it.
DJ, I have no idea the exact number, but it's a good amount, I believe, for PvE deaths.
Dom, when are you getting sponsored by Raid Shadow Legends?
I don't know. I'll
Barbecue.
probably just have to throw him an email and be like, "Hey, I got a stream once that had 30 viewers. You pay me."
That's
not
probably
that hard.
enough. That's probably enough, to be honest.
I did not let Rocky tell his joke last episode because, frankly, I was intimidated. I was scared. I was terrified.
He told
of
me the joke
consequences.
after. It was really good.
I'm terrified
Can he,
of the
can he
consequences.
tell it now?
No, it's not meant for the stream.
That's what I presumed. I presumed it was not okay. I'm not
Bobby,
doubting it.
one.
I am
I've
not doubting it was
suicided in
funny.
one RR.
I am not doubting it was a funny joke. I'm just
all of them.
doubting that it would be okay.
Okay, actual question: has anyone like in the stream ever actually played Raid Shadow Legends? Like, is it good?
I'm convinced no one's ever
It's a
played the game.
mobile game.
Everyone like
All of
jokes
us-
it.
does
Everyone
anyone in
memes
the
about it, but has
stream-
anyone actually ever played it?
Does anyone on the stream have Fall Guys? I really want to get that. I've heard it's good.
I have a friend who was not sure if he wanted to buy Fall Guys, so he went to the official Twitch stream of Chuck E. Cheese, who was playing Fall Guys, and asked Chuck E. Cheese if he could recommend it, which he did. Chuck E. Cheese apparently insanely good at Fall Guys, by the way.
Sorry, Bobby. Not today. Oh,
That's my first shout out to the stream. Shout out to Chuck E. Cheese's Twitch channel. He's kind of nuts at Fall Guys.
okay.
Shout out Navigation UHC.
Rest in peace.
Big.
Thank you, Jar. Bobby chose it for me, so you should thank him. I would get Fall Guys if a lot of other people, like if people in the UGD Discord got Fall Guys, I would get it immediately.
I think Katie wants to get it, so
It looks fun. I don't know if it's worth. It's like £20. It seems a bit of a price for what it is.
It's
but-
20 American dollars. I don't know what
Sorry,
it's going to
it
cost
seems
for
it
you.
kind of feels a little lacking in content now. It's one of those gameplay loops where you need a lot of content to get the most fun out of it. It seems like
No, I mean it seems really fun. I just don't know if I'd be willing to spend that much money on it.
it's fair.
I'm just waiting for Jackbox 7 to come out. Should be out soon, I believe.
I cannot do a tier list of my RR POVs because I forget like all of my POVs like a day after they happen. You could tell me like just like some random rounds in the past and I could probably not tell you what happened in them.
Mike D is heading to my house with my order. Thanks, Mike D.
I can
Ooh.
give you a couple of recorded rounds that I know you might have an opinion on.
What's your fun list?
Oh no, it's fine.
I was expecting a Pathfinder 7.
Yeah. You see, I was gonna say that, but then I realized, you know what? Nah, I don't want to annoy him.
It's fine.
But-
The past's in the past.
Okay.
I still hate Cobwebs and I still hate Jake, but you know.
Oh, so since the RR Awards haven't happened yet, I would like to announce that myself, Bobby, and a few other people have been doing mini awards for specific seasons of rounds. We'll watch the montage and then we'll rank. We'll do different awards for that. So I'll give you an example of a few.
All right.
For example, Dom, I know how much you like Phobia. So
I have a little bit of a personal connection to it.
so we most recently did Phobia season 15,
Okay.
right? So our categories are our winner, biggest fail, my Kale of the season, funniest moment, craziest moment, best team, did Flubble play, did Majora suicide, and saddest moment. So for our winner of the season, we chose BBR. We
Okay.
thought he was the best. For biggest fail, it's Scrib falling.
Yeah, that's accurate.
For my Kale of the season, it's my Kale.
Yep.
Shocker!
For funniest moment, we have Speedo's large arms, which is when Speedo hit Diana B once and she went flying off of a mountain.
Mm-hmm. Good.
The craziest moment is the BBR 1v3 win.
Yeah, BBR's nuts.
The best team is the 3 Flues makers.
Yes.
Did Flubble play? No. Did Majora suicide? No. And saddest moment, BBR's downfall.
You're really rooting for BBR though. That's
Well, we thought he was gonna win. So
yeah. Unfortunately, he did not. Someone had to crush his dreams.
would you like another one, Dom? Before we get started, I'll give you one more.
Give us one more, yeah.
All right. How about Comical season 1?
Okay. All right.
Who is Mike Hill this season?
Very
So
weird.
for
like,
Comical season
switch.
1, our winner, James the Douglas.
Perfect.
Biggest
As it
fail,
should be.
the Sheep Masters. My Kale of the season, Plushie 33. Funniest
Okay.
moment was James team killing Tony.
All right.
Craziest moment was kill coordination featuring Vetmeyer. I don't remember what that was. Best team was the Dennis team.
Okay.
Did Fool play? No. Did Majora suicide? No. Saddest moment was Plushie dying.
It's
and
truly sad.
that's where we're at so far.
Huh. All right.
Yeah.
In that case, I think we should probably actually get kickstarted with the podcast. Couldn't think of a better introduction than there. I'll fill you with the RR words for like a month or so. Let me just find the list of shit here. All right, so let's talk about rounds. Anyone have anything in mind they want to talk about? Because we're doing more of a brief version. Because last time it took us 2 hours, which is not what any of us want to do this time.
Dom, just something I want to say. Do you know that like part of like the chat is visible below all our icons?
Yeah, no, I know chat's visible.
Oh, okay. Just
I put a
making
cool
sure.
little layout.
You guys, watch this.
Okay, I'm just making sure.
Thanks to the blue beam. Mark is red.
Yes.
Mark is red. Okay, so I think the easiest thing for us to talk about, to go off the start of the awards here, is literally yesterday 2 intros dropped. That being for
Which ones?
being for Dire Straits season 1, and I think someone here might will talk about this other one, Destral season 2.
All right. Well, you guys are talking about that. I'm gonna watch these 2 intros.
Yeah, I can mention this Troll season 2 first. But pretty much, I gave the organization to Love and DJ. I think competitive rounds really hard to organize, especially with me that's not in the competitive part of 1.12 and all. And now we're working with that. We got 2 season release pretty fast. I think season 1 I said it was going to be a one-time.
Yeah, you did.
And pretty much a big part of the roster wanted to keep the run and have more season. But then it turned out that other part of the roster didn't want to, and they all left when we decided to get another season.
Ooh, that's a bit unfortunate.
But yeah, so I think I opened applications yesterday for people that are interested in joining, and hopefully we'll get a bigger roster next time.
Yeah.
But that's pretty much all I have to say about it.
So this is like the high skill 1.12 round, right? I'm just making sure. Yeah.
If anyone's interested in applying for Destral, there's a link in the Twitch chat to which you can find the applications.
Thank you.
Fun chat.
Do it, John.
Well, it's a link to Brodator's Twitter, but it's the same thing.
I do remember I was gushing about Destral in the last episode. I'm pretty sure, because I do quite like the concept, especially after watching a bunch of 1.12 stuff. So
it is a cool concept. I think we talked about it a little bit last time. I think I remember us talking a little bit about season 1 at that point, like the idea of like there being another competitive round. But I think this one works well because there isn't one for like the later version, so it's a whole new level of combat and just skill, which is really cool to me.
Yeah, it's a very different mindset. Sorry, I was probably I was just checking out the Dire Straits intro again.
I like the Destral intro. I've always been more interested in like the aesthetics and the kind of editing of the intros, and this, like, it looks nice. You know, there's nothing too over the top, but it just looks good. Yeah, I like it a lot.
Yeah.
Final's been making quite a few intros lately, hasn't he? And they've all been pretty decent. Shoutouts to him. His intros have been pretty good.
Yeah.
Vinyl. He's made some pretty good intros lately.
Yeah, the Dire Straits, that intro is also great. Yeah.
Art styles too. Very
Yeah,
nice art.
I was gonna say specifically Evan's art is really great, as always.
It's a very nice intro.
Beasting.
Yeah.
It's got a very interesting roster as well. Quite like, it's an interesting mix. It's kind of got a very familiar feel. And there's also a couple of faces there. It's like, okay, it's interesting, but I'm down. Like, there's a lot of faces I'm kind of used to seeing in rounds nowadays. But also Ryan's popping up there. Shout out Ryan. 4N, interesting to see as well. Yeah, I just quite like it.
I definitely like one of the things that I especially like about it is that it's taking a group that you don't necessarily see every day and it's throwing them in there. And yeah, there's also people that you do see every day thrown in there, but it's still nice to see something fresh rather than just the same old rehash of the same people in different mixes. So that's something that I especially like about it, rather than just seeing the same thing that I've seen before.
It's a nice mix, yeah. Just thought two good intros are dropped yesterday. I think pretty much at the same time as well, like within an hour of each other.
Yeah.
It was, yeah, close squeeze. There's a lot of so I just want to kind of touch on a broad point, a very broad point about the past rounds. I don't know how much people talk about this, but I'm a little bit out of touch. So I spent a little while kind of catching up on the rounds that released since the last episode, and I kind of felt a little underwhelmed. I felt like the past month had a lot of underwhelming rounds. There was definitely some good stuff, but it felt for the most part kind of
How so?
Yeah.
I don't know, just the seasons just weren't super interesting, I guess.
Okay.
I can kind of understand that. I mean,
There's like
we
a
had
few seasons I could agree with.
we've had a few really good seasons in the past year or so. Like I can think of one being Agency 11. Abstraction probably had at
I'm
least
back
one
with
really
my
good one in
food.
there. I can't name one off the top of my head. I thought season 5 was good at least, but I definitely think that we've had a few really good extreme seasons in the past recently, and I mean, it's also just as possible that there's going to be a lot of mediocre seasons in the future. Not necessarily to say that's a specific, like there's a specific reason for that, but more so that our expectations have been raised by some really good rounds, just seasons themselves. And
Yeah.
I mean, it could be that it's more of a rarity than we think, rather than a common occurrence.
Yeah.
I guess it is just the kind of the expectation that when rounds come out, you're gonna get a lot of mediocre, decent, and then like one or two like high moments of like this is really good. For the past month, we haven't had really any of those high moments. Just kind of being like, it's all right, just been all right for the most part, which kind of feels like a bit of a downstep from previously. Again, I don't even necessarily think there was a lot of bad rounds that came out.
Well, I think that now the expectations of certain rounds are like just ingrained in people's mind. Like you see like something like, for example, Desire coming out. You expect it's Desire, so you expect something better than like an average round. You see like a round that's on like season 3 or 4 that not many people have heard of before. They're like, oh, okay, like this might be good. But now there's like this mindset with season 1s especially where it's like, all right, well, whatever.
There's been a lot of season 1s and stuff lately. I feel like there's been a lot of rounds in general lately. Like there's been a bit more than normal. I felt, which I don't think is a bad thing. But
I mean, I think like with COVID and all, like there's gonna be some kind of boost in new Rs and just more R season for that's coming up soon because of that, and like just all the time that people had extra, and like there was some recorded rounds recorded during the weekdays, and like there's gonna be more rounds popping up because of that.
It's definitely been quite a high fluctuation of season 1s, and I think that's a little bit a part of how I feel underwhelmed. Not even necessarily, it's just like, oh, season 1s are terrible. I've been checking them out, hoping they've been good, and I just don't feel like many of them have got off on the best foot. They've just they've had a bit of a not necessarily a bad start. It's just kind of off on a bit of a meh foot.
In that case, to you, Dom, and I guess to anyone else, what would you like to see from a recorded round that would make you like, this is good? Like what is everything lacking that you want to see then?
It's just It's just my personal.
That can be directed to anyone, by the way.
Yeah, it's just my personal like feeling on it is if you're a season 1, it's obviously it's easy to just be like, oh, it's rounds, you shouldn't care this much, but it's a lot of what's on the subreddit now, so you kind of got to care a bit. If you're starting off with a season 1, you kind of start off on a, even not like a perfect season obviously, but just something that grabs attention, like gets you noticed, and usually kind of got to do quite a few things to get you right there, like good game modes, solid roster, decent season off the go, and I feel like a bunch of the rounds that have come out in the past month, like new rounds, have really lacked in like at least one of those categories. Like I'm just checking back through Paranormal Hunters right now, which I quite like. I remember quite liking the roster of it. I I think I remember correctly. I think I enjoyed what I saw of the season, but I think the game mode is like, for the idea of the round, the game mode is bad. I did not like the game mode. It's
I
based.
thought the game mode was funny.
It's
I
kind of
think
funny.
people in their own
That's
like
not a
this.
good thing.
It's interesting, but I don't see it really like. I don't really see it affecting the season in any kind of important way. Really, it will kind of add some funny moments, maybe like I don't know,
Game
some
mode-
being scared, but it's not gonna like really change much.
Game modes are good if they provide like depth, but not like nuisance depth. And it feels like
Mhm.
this game mode is just meant to be more of a nuisance than anything else. It's just like every 10 minutes it's like, oh, random ass noises, go burn flowers. There's not really like any.
Yeah.
There's not much of an incentive to not. Yeah, if you're interacting with the game mode, it's because you don't want to be annoyed, which is not how I feel like you should be doing game modes.
That's something
I-
I'm really skeptical of. Like, I've personally, as an organizer, I've tried to find workarounds before to make a game mode that might, in itself, seem like way too much, more tolerable. So that way, we can have a game mode that kind of has its intended effect, but also kind of subvert the whole part where the game gets drastically changed, so that the game is basically the same, and so people don't hate themselves while playing it. But that kind of circumvents the whole point of a recorded round, which is to make something new and entertaining. So I don't necessarily know if this was the intention, but it almost seems like the game mode was specifically designed so that it would be minor, and then it could also be disabled by using the flower to be burned or whatever. So that
Right.
way it could essentially just be a game mode that you can turn off at will.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it's just that like balance. Where's the line of like whether something's too much or not? It needs to be different enough to the point where it's interesting, but at the
Yeah.
same time, people are playing RRs generally because they like playing UHC, and it needs to be the same. And if you
Mhm.
change too much, that's not what they came for.
Yeah.
And
I think-
especially, I just worry that people are specifically, they want to make a round, but they don't want to go through the effort of getting interesting, unique game modes that are very, changing to the game, but also interesting and not necessarily horrible at the same time to play. Like, and there are probably some generic examples. I could maybe say like Abstraction 2, where it's alone together, the team of two with Mumble. Like,
Mhm.
okay, that might be really intolerable for some people, especially me, someone who really doesn't like Mumble, but I also think that it's got a lot of potential to be a really fun game mode. So it's both game changing and very engaging for the players.
I think I've been saying this for a while. When it comes to game modes, like I've seen a lot of rounds do this thing now where if their game mode isn't good enough, they just add mumble to it just to make it more interesting. And I personally have never been a huge fan of mumble. Like,
Same.
It makes it fun, I guess, but it happens all the time. Like I think there was a string where I was playing 5 rounds, and each one of those 5 was mumble.
It needs to
So-
service the game mode, and I think when it comes to Abstraction 2, I think it really did, because I think those two work really well together. But in a lot of times, it does feel a bit like just like
If mumble supports the game mode, yes, but don't just make it mumble because why not?
That's why I was saying, because obviously with Alone Together, those two work really well together because you're using Mumble to actually figure out where your teammates are instead of just seeing them. But yeah, I know what you mean. A lot of the times it does just seem like it's kind of, and it's Mumble. And there you go.
If I was like,
sorry.
I was gonna comment on I was gonna make a comment about paranormal as well. I was just gonna say that like I like the idea because I started a lot. I do like the idea, but I think it was more designed for the players rather than a viewer, because like the players are gonna be like more inclined to what is it, witness all the sounds, and it's gonna make more of an impact to their game. But like to the viewers, it might just be kind of not frustrating. They might not have the same they might have the same impact or effect as the players themselves had. Also, I feel like getting like burning a flower seems a bit too much. Like it just seems like a bit too much of an annoyance, too much of a like it takes too much time. I don't know, maybe that's just my opinion. I mean, obviously I didn't play, so that's just my opinion. Sorry.
Also, yeah,
I
shout
thought
to the
the
dog, by the way.
Yeah, the dog.
thought-
The dog really put me off. That's why I was talking slow. I was like, I can't really focus on my words. There's a
Champ.
there's a loud dog.
I disagree that the Paranormal Hunters game mode was bad for the viewer because I think that people screaming was funny and it's something that you don't normally see out of a recorded round, which
Mhm.
is like it's raw, unfiltered emotion and it's awesome.
Yeah, Ulti made a scream montage of the season where I think there's over like 10 minutes of people screaming in a season.
Yeah, I did see that video. I did, yeah.
Yeah, I haven't seen any scream tags for Phobia, which is supposed to be scary, I guess.
Alright,
I don't
okay,
know.
alright, listen. Okay.
Yeah, Dom, where's your
Is Paranormal
screen
Hunters
touch?
the next Phobia? Leave your answer in the chat.
I'm not gonna make any comments on that. But I think the Paranormal Hunters concept is great. It's got good potential for fun stuff. It's just I think this initial note was not the best one. It just seems more of I'll admit the scream tag was quite interesting, quite like that. But it feels more of a hassle, more of a nuisance to play, which is I don't think good necessarily for game modes.
After hearing
Yeah.
other people talk about it, I can definitely see why the game mode was why the game mode is a good idea. However, I do still think that like I don't know, like the hassle of like getting a flower and burning it just feels like too much. I guess I don't know. Maybe that's just me. It just
I mean,
seems like
I was gonna say I
is-
feel like that seems a bit too easy almost. I mean, you can get
yeah, exactly.
flowers really quickly. It doesn't really change much other than just you can run around the plains and find 20 flowers in like a few seconds, and then it's just kind of the
It
time
should
of
be,
doing it.
It should be something more like affecting to like the game mode that like might make it a bit more like difficult or something, or that has like an impact. I mean,
Yeah.
you're going out of your way to like left click on a flower, which you could do by just running around looking for animals. Like that's not that hard to do, I guess. It's not that hard to obtain.
It's a game mode. It's kind of like in the vein of it's like if you did a round and the game mode is like, if you mine a diamond ore, you get nausea for like 10 minutes, but you can do /no and it gets rid of the nausea. It's like it adds very little and it just exists purely to get in the way. It doesn't like there's no kind of like way you can play around it. There's no depth to the game. It doesn't add anything. It just adds another wall of just between the player and doing what they want to do. Which is, yeah, I don't think it's a good way to do them. I'm interested in seeing what Paranormal Hunters does going forward. It's just this is I kind of think is a game mode.
I like the actual sound idea. I just think the way it can be disabled is a bit lackluster. I mean,
there was a
in my
challenge for it.
yeah, I think just generally being able to just disable a game mode by doing something is a bit like eh. But I like the actual, as Hannah said. I mean, it is funny watching people scream. Like, I don't dislike that part. I think it's just the flower thing. I'm not a big fan of.
Yeah.
Yeah, the disabling a game mode can be fine, but I think there needs to be some kind of challenge, or you need to kind of deserve it to disable it.
Exactly. It kind of goes into the whole like risk reward cost benefit type thing instead of making it a minor change. And that's more or less what I was speaking about, in terms of a game mode I'd specifically avoid one where you can tell, or at least you think the design is more so focused on making the game easier for the players. So being able to turn something off at a very low cost is like that's probably a very strong sign that it's going down that same path of, again, just being easier for the player rather than being more entertaining or engaging. Although I do think that there's always like, don't take any criticism to heart because there's always room for improvement, especially looking at what you did in the past and seeing what you don't like. Because I do that all the time where I'll see what I didn't like about past seasons of my round and I'll try to implement changes. And then conversely, I'll try to be consistent about things that I actually really enjoyed.
Yeah, don't think anyone else has anything else to say on Paranormal Hunters. We've given that a good chunk of conversation. Because I just wanted to point out something. I checked the description of the Dire Straits intro. Kind of absolutely furious. Furious.
Oh no.
Not really. Kind of reading through the description of the round there, because it's the only place you can really find it. The round is being described as quotes, where we use specific game mode combinations in an attempt to make certain aspects of the game more challenging.
Yeah, it seems like another round we might know.
I'm not even necessarily going on about like it being like a rip off another round, but it's like it's so like just not anything. It's like
it's not the strongest concept.
It's like wow,
Well, it says,
game modes that make the game hard.
Yeah. So it's nightmare mode is what this one is.
It's nightmare mode and permanite.
Yeah, which they tend to go together.
I'm pretty sure that was already done in another. That was ages ago.
Was that not like that was just Phobia 1, wasn't it?
No, I'm pretty sure it was also done. Dom, you remember this? Tommy made a one-time round one time, and I'm pretty sure. Yeah, I'm pretty sure. Yeah, that's the name. I'm pretty sure that the same game modes were used there, but that was ages ago. I mean, game modes are bound to collide eventually anyway. But yeah.
I just think the concept's just kind of. I mean, the description is just like, okay. I think a lot of rounds do that, like many rounds.
Welcome to Hell was permanite as well.
Oh, was it? I forgot that.
Yeah.
Huh.
I mean, I don't think it's like. I don't think they can, like. It's not like a super novel idea to put
I'm not like
together.
saying they ripped it off.
No. As I said, I mean,
I just noticed.
Yeah, as I said, game modes can clash. I mean, it's gonna happen eventually. I mean, like, game modes will be repeated at some point.
Mm-hmm. It always will.
So that wasn't a
criticism.
I was just making a note.
Well, yeah, no, I mean, yeah, unless you're making a custom game mode, that's gonna happen. So. As long as it isn't too overdone. I don't think nightmare mode is exactly overdone. You don't really see it that often, but
at least in a meaningful way, I'd say, because you can add small buffs to the mobs, but if you actually have a hellish nightmare mode, like take Cobra server how it used to be, where mobs would spawn in masses for no reason. Like imagine that. That sounds like something that actually sounds like a nightmare. Rather than just, well, we made the skeletons do an extra half heart when they shoot you.
It's just dead. Yeah. I mean, I think the game mode. I'm gonna be honest, just to be just a bit of a Debbie Downer. I don't think the game mode combination is that particularly interesting. Especially considering, I think because the main difficulty that came from the game mode combinations in Welcome to Hell was the fact it was also triple dungeon rates, which for nightmare mode, you get fucked up quite easily. Permanite is only a problem if you're on the surface, and if you're just gonna and a lot of people will just see like, oh, it's permanite nightmare mode, shit on the surface is gonna be troublesome. I'm just gonna cave for like.
Well, permanite also actually means that there's actually less mobs in caves because they'll end up spawning on the surface.
Yeah, I feel like it's one of those ones that on paper it sounds like it works, but in reality it probably doesn't. You might get like some more PvP actions and PvE actions and like maybe Ep 4, Ep 3, Ep 5 if people head to the surface. But for the most part, a lot of people are just going to be in the caves all the time, and they're going to be seeing less mobs. So, I don't know how it works in reality. Of course, this is just speculation based off the intro.
Yeah.
So, we can't really tell until next podcast episode.
Yeah.
Presumably the whole season will come out.
I mean, this is more like preemptive criticism, if anything, because we'll find out as things go along, but we're also going to know if it kind of fits that criticism or if it kind of circumvents that in some way.
If our prediction rung true or not.
Yeah, pretty much.
The nightmare mode really could work out very poorly for the round just because it has 14 players and any significant amount of PvE deaths means there's like no fighting going on.
Very true as well, which would be kind of sucky. Hopefully it's not that. Another bad send-off for season 1 if that was the case.
Didn't they say they had like 4 attempts though? It's probably good.
Ooh.
Oh.
4 attempts is quite brutal.
I swear I saw that somewhere. Maybe I'm wrong.
Well, I know the round has been alive since like 2018 or 2019.
I don't know if I should state my opinions on that because I feel like it's unpopular.
Go on. We've never been shy of controversy here. Come on.
I don't know. I feel like if it's your first season and the concept doesn't work 3 times in a row and it's your first season, you don't really have anything to lose by not uploading it, by making a new concept or like just not considering the round at all. I don't know. I feel like after 3 seasons of it not work or 3 attempts of it not working, I think that's kind of a sign that you shouldn't do it.
It wasn't meant to be.
Yeah. Like, I don't know, maybe that's just me, in my opinion. I mean, as he said, we haven't actually, no one's seen the actual season yet, other than the people actually playing it. But I don't know, it just feels like I don't know, it just doesn't seem like it was, as he said, meant to be.
Yeah, I think we'll just have to, it's one of those
We're gonna
things
have to
where
see
we
with
can,
the season.
yeah, we can speculate, but he knows how it's going to go. Apart from the people who played.
Yeah, pretty much.
Lights just explain the reasons for there being 3 or 4 attempts.
First got no fill, game mode didn't work for the second. Okay, and it was 3 attempts. Okay, that's fair enough. That's fair enough. It's not like it's just like bad season redos. Okay, that makes sense.
Yeah, if it was bad season reduced, then my own opinion would still like be kind of valid. But if those are the reasons, I do understand.
Yeah, makes sense. Makes sense. What else can we talk about here?
I wanted something I wanted to mention from one of the rounds.
Okay.
So I had a discussion with someone else. I don't remember who, but about Golden Globe season 3. I know the production for that season. I think the season was recorded at the end of August, and the season ended up releasing
In the future.
If only.
Yeah, that's
in the future, that's impressive.
And released this June. And I remember having a discussion about if the run having bad rates was because of the production or because of the roster, which I feel there's a mix of both in there.
If you're holding on to a round for like a year, there are bound to be people who are even reliable uploaders normally. People who will just give up on it and just be like, this is not worth it. Especially considering that there is still people who can't hold on to a lot of RR footage due to like storage constraints or stuff like that. Just holding on to just this stagnant footage for like a year is hard to justify for some people, even if they are considered normally reliable uploaders. So that kind of, I could see that.
It does happen. I always get a bit confused by it because I feel like when it comes to space and stuff, you can just upload it without an intro. Like nobody really fusses about that kind of stuff, but you do see that happening. The longer and longer, the less likely you're gonna have everybody upload.
Or like if you know it's gonna take a lot of time, you can just ask everyone to upload right now without the intro.
I mean, knowing the history of what happened with Golden Globe, I have a feeling that they were not anticipating a year.
I think we talked a lot about this last time.
Yeah.
I have faint memories of us talking about the production of that last season, last episode, last stream.
Oh yeah, because
Really?
Golden Globe was it was mostly released before the last episode. The only thing that came out after the last episode was the finale, the end of the season.
Yeah.
Which I need to remind myself. I'm struggling to. I've had to try to remember so much shit. It's like I'm attending an exam. I gotta quickly remind myself of the information.
I think the finale was fine, somewhat.
Didn't Summer Bash win?
Pretty sure, I think so.
Let me just remind myself.
I look through the finales, like, because I don't generally watch recorded rounds.
I think the one thing I remember is that Ombre suicided.
Oh, that's fun. Always good to see an RR suicide.
The finale of Golden Globes rates were pretty unfortunate. It was like 8 out of 17.
That's not even 50%.
Yeah.
The chat lied.
Yeah, that's more than unfortunate.
Most of the people
48%. I can't believe the chat would lie to us.
Most of the people that the footage died early.
Yeah, which is not what you want to have.
So the rates actually decrease after each episode.
Ugh. Grisly. Again, I don't put the. It's one of those exceptions where I can't just be like, it's organizers' fault for not pushing for uploads or roster's fault. It just seems like a mess of errors that just caused that to happen, which is kind of unfortunate.
I don't want to say that we did talk a lot. We talked a lot about this last time, so I don't think we need to talk about it all too much this time.
Yeah, we'll move swiftly on to something else. We actually, I think a party of one actually, when we discussed it at the podcast last, I think only episode 1 of Party of One had come out.
Oh yeah,
So we can talk about the rest of Party of One, which I
Yep.
it was a pretty good season if I remember.
I have a couple of things I could comment on.
Go ahead.
I mean, I don't know if anyone watched the finale, but I remember the finale was actually really, really good. I believe it was won by Mr. Craft on, I think, 1%.
It was 0%.
It was
0%. It was something crazy like that. So that was really cool. However, there were a few things that weren't particularly liked by some of the people playing. I do remember. I don't know if anyone. I don't really know the reactions in the recorder and Discord to it, but one of the things that I couldn't talk about last time was that during the middle of fights, the spectators dragged the people fighting into the same call with each other, and like I personally wasn't a huge fan of that as a player. I don't know if the people watching enjoyed that, and I know I wasn't the only player that didn't like that. But I also know a few other players did actually like it. It was a very mixed opinion. I don't know what you guys thought about.
I don't know. I was fine with it. It's just that, when you fight, and I remember I was trying to keep commentary, but then I get moved, and you can't really talk anymore because otherwise you will spoil your strategies to
exactly
if you're fighting.
Like it really put me off as a commentator, and also I think it didn't really help me in my actual fight as well. And plus, whenever I'm fighting in like solo rounds, I tend to try and give commentary or like about how I'm feeling about the situation, but I can't really do that when the enemy is in the call. I don't know. It just wasn't really.
It seems like a weird idea for a round that is supposed to be revolving around commentary. That's
it unfortunately incentivizes people to not talk.
Yeah,
because it's like if you're in a call with the person you're fighting right now, people regardless in a lot of rounds in like FFA circumstances talk less when they're fighting anyway. Now when you have the knowledge that if you talk you're going to give your gear away to other people, then it's just all it's going to do is make people not want to talk. And also I feel like the interview aspect of some people enjoyed it, some people didn't. I thought it was definitely interesting from a viewer standpoint. But the problem is if people playing don't enjoy the interview aspect, they're probably going to have not good interviews because they don't want to be there.
Here's the thing. I didn't know that I would be dragged into the call with my enemy in the middle of the game. Now there's a chance I might have missed this in the intro, but I know that, I mean, as Noah said, Quill wasn't a huge fan of it. I also wasn't a huge fan of it, and I probably wouldn't have played if I knew that was a thing. But I don't know. Maybe I just missed. Maybe I just didn't hear it. I mean, and that's no hate to Gavin or anything, because the idea is actually really cool. I loved the idea of a free-for-all record round, and as I said, the first season was really, really close, and that had a great finale. But I have to be honest with my opinion since this is the podcast and such. Also, Greep, I see you in the chat. I still hate you. You suck.
The fuck out.
He killed me. He killed me. I still can't forgive him.
I mean, I think with Party of One, even if the interviewers are the best interviewers ever and they're like awesome, it's going to be like in a free-for-all recorded round, you're only going to be with the interviewers so much, so it ends up not impacting your perspective all that much.
I lived until the end of episode 5, and the interviewers only came in once, and like midway through episode 4, and like other than my fight with Greep.
Like once during caving, and it was really weird for me because my first 2 fights I didn't get moved with whoever I was fighting, and the third fight I was in, I actually got moved. So it really surprised me.
Teach me your ways.
Because the first 2 fights, I'm pretty sure, my first 2 fights was another fight happening at the same time, so they got moved instead of me and whoever was fighting.
Yeah, despite all the criticisms, it is a really good idea for round, and and like as much as I didn't enjoy how I died, I did enjoy playing, and I think it was a very good watch for
it's a
good majority of people.
But I had the feeling that people were confused on the concept of the round, like mixing the concept of the round of the season, because I think the concept of the round is just to be free for all.
I mean, that's honestly not even a bad concept because I don't think a round like that even exists. I don't think there is a round that's dedicated to solo commentary.
No, I don't think so.
So, like, honestly, it's not even a bad concept.
Yeah, because usually when you have a recording round, you have a mix of people in your roster that are not interested in playing free-for-alls.
Mm-hmm.
It says the concept is players will be scattered alone, so they'll probably do like split spawn at some point. I would assume.
How long?
It's not
how
really
long
much of
till
a
Mumble?
concept now, is
I
it?
don't think I'm allowed to spoil anything.
Predicting Mumble in the near future. It's an
Yeah.
inevitability.
Well,
I mean,
Mumble
Because every round has to have Mumble, am I right?
Yes. Mandatory Mumble
Mumble
season.
also incentivizes people to not talk.
Yeah, I was
So
going to
that
say
may
it's the
not
same
be a good
issues.
idea.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
I
When
mean,
it comes
it's
to talking while fighting, it's the same. You get the same issues with Mumble.
I'm pretty sure from the Discord, it says that every season is free-for-all, and the game modes are centered around isolation and loneliness. And the goal is to have good solo commentary. So I think Kevin did a pretty good job of getting people that were good at solo commentary.
Oh, the roster was very good for that. Big fan of big fan of the people that played, except Grape.
Mm-hmm. Of course.
So anyway,
All right, I want to.
what's next?
I want to shit on someone for a little while here.
Oh no.
All right, so caught up with this as well. Prospect season 2. Right. Let's. Okay, now I'm going to comment about the posting of the episode post. That's not anything significant here. Let's talk about the end of the season. Because the end
What
of the
exactly
season
happened?
was very interesting. First things first, the last 2 players alive were Scooby and Josh. They were on 2 different teams. I think Scooby ended up winning the season in the end. Yeah, Scooby won the season in the end. At the start of episode 6, the final episode, like you can hear it in the end of episode 5, Josh and Scooby joined a call with one another. Josh didn't have. I don't think Josh didn't have footage for the whole season, and Scooby, who had audio for the first 5 episodes, didn't have audio for the last episode when he was in voice with Josh, and they were the last 2.
That's not good.
Interesting.
Not good. Also, rewatching it now, I didn't realize this. When it goes to the last 2, after Josh kills James, I'm pretty sure. No, after Scooby kills James, Scooby gets messaged by someone who's dead, telling them to go back to the loot pile to get healing.
Ah, wonderful.
So,
Interesting.
mess, just big old mess. Yeah, it's really like wow, like it's not something you want to have happen in your recorded round. I'll say that much. Just basically a whole finale of 2 people cross teaming.
Quite the prospect.
Quite the prospect. And then also having someone have like loot spoiled to them by a spectator. Yeah, it's the first season 2 was the first season posted to Reddit. It's effectively a season 1. Very bad.
I mean,
first
season
impression.
1 didn't have a concept.
Yeah, I remember hearing that season 1 was very different organizers, different concept, all that.
So for season 1, it was Freak that created the round. The roster was somewhat different and had no concept, and decided to kill the round after season 1. But Cafe
Season 1
decided
wasn't
to take
Reddit, was
over,
it?
and
It was
it was
not Reddit, yes.
non-Reddit, and decided to take the round over and make it Reddit.
Yeah. Also, yeah, pointed out by Light as well. The season was Gold Rush, makes sense for Prospect, which did end up meaning that the James versus Scooby fight was
It makes the fight very unbalanced.
Was James and Douglas in full gold versus Scooby in full diamond with strength and speed potions, which is bad, very bad.
Gold Rush is just bad because if you get diamond armor, you win. So either you snowball or you cave till meetup, and there's no in between.
Yeah, it's a pretty bad game mode.
I don't think it was ever intended on being a serious game mode, if I'm honest.
No.
I think it's one of those game modes that was hosted just as a kind of joke, which
Yeah, but
happens in general. Which is why
naturally,
when
I
you see
think
it in a
people,
round, it's a bit like.
people
One
are
thing-
gonna be angry if they lose when they're undergeared because they feel like
No,
there's
yeah,
nothing
yeah,
they
yeah.
can do.
That's what I'm saying. I don't think it's a great choice for an RR game mode, really.
Yeah. People. I don't. Yeah, I wouldn't. I don't put it past people the fact that there's a game mode like this, which causes very snowbally gear situations, combined with two people effectively cross teaming till final two, who are also stacked as hell and getting spec spoiled. It's
I do think, at least from no, I don't necessarily think this is good or bad towards the round. It's just a general commentary. But I think that there's a lot of things that don't necessarily seem like etiquette to someone who doesn't really pay that much attention. But most importantly is that we I feel bad for the organizer here because there's very little you can really do to stop something like that other than get more trustworthy people. But at the end of the day, if someone you thought was trustworthy turns out that they weren't trustworthy, there's not really anything you can do about it other than just say, well, we have to throw away the whole season because this bad thing happened. And then on top of that, there's also the possibility that you won't even know something bad happened in the season because there's so many things that happen. Even if you're an organizer spectating or if you're paying attention or if you get people's actual feelings about the season, you're not necessarily going to know. But something that I do think is important is generally people being more attentive to what etiquette is allowed and what etiquette is not allowed, because it seems like there are certain things that always get shunned and it seems like people don't necessarily learn from that. Things that have been consistently seen as bad don't necessarily ever get fixed or changed in terms of people's behaviors. And one thing is, it's an easy one, but when upload rates are really bad, that usually gives me a sour taste towards a round. And obviously that is something that you can't necessarily always control, and there's often circumstances that will mess that up a little. But at the end of the day, it's still something to consider. Generally, people always need to be striving towards improving that, and I think etiquette should be seen the exact same way. People should always be aiming towards having better etiquette in recorded rounds, because even I've seen it in recorded rounds I've played where etiquette has kind of slowly drifted out the window until people just stopped caring altogether.
Yeah, it's definitely I feel like it's probably a case of benefit of the doubt. I feel like the organizer didn't realize this was all happening, especially considering as well that the spec spoiling was done in a private DM, so you can't really tell that as organizer. I mean, they might be able to tell they were in a call, maybe just by watching kind of they were cross teaming, but it's not. If there's one thing I've learned from Arctic moderation, it can sometimes be hard to spot cross teaming.
I just think cross teaming
who's to say that the spec spoiling was malicious? Because that doesn't necessarily mean they were saying, "Oh, I have to help my friend win." It could have just been, "Oh my God, he's so stupid. Is he actually going to run away from that healing?"
Yeah, it also could have been that, but it's especially
I mean,
the person
that doesn't make it okay necessarily, but.
Yeah, the person who did it was also not on their team, so but it's could be explained through that, but it's still also not good.
I feel like the cross teaming was kind of blatant because the way that Scooby Snacks got most of his loot was from picking it up from one of Josh's kills, I think, if I remember correctly.
Someone in the chat did say that, yeah. It was a lot of loot. It was a lot of swooping through.
Yeah, he got full diamond and pots from that. And also, I don't think the spec spoiling was malicious at all, but it's still spec spoiling.
Yeah.
Yeah, but that does make the difference between whether we say that person is rude or that person is stupid.
I mean,
very polar extremes, but you get the idea.
The spec spoiling was very minor. It was he had just killed someone, and they said there are gaps in his pile. Obviously, he's going to check the pile anyway.
Yeah, but it made sure he did it immediately. I think just the even if the end it didn't have much of an impact, it's still kind of I
bad
guess
luck.
it's just a bad. It's a very bad act. Just done in it was in a circumstance where it didn't affect anything, but it still doesn't change what the act was. Like the context means everything. I just felt like I pointed that out because it was interesting. Also, yeah, Brody apparently dipped at some point.
Yeah.
We lost a real one tonight. Rest in
Probably
peace.
had to go somewhere, I'd assume.
Yeah, I do know some of the guests have to leave early. Not this early though. So I don't know.
Things come up.
I need to
Think
leave
so.
too. I'm going right now. Goodbye.
All right, bye. Go on, leave, coward. I dare you.
I don't know. How do I leave? I don't know how to do it, dude. What?
Are you new
Take
to
a
Discord?
shovel, throw it
Yeah,
on
I
your
am
feet.
new. I actually made an account yesterday.
I can tell you're pretty young through your profile picture.
I know, right?
You're
Yeah.
pretty experienced in technology. Does anyone have anything else to comment on in terms of recent rounds? Anything else piqued anyone's fancy?
One thing. Wait, is it just rounds in general?
It's recent rounds over the past month. That kind of stuff.
Yeah, that's what I meant.
We're still
Sorry.
still rounded up.
One of the things I actually took the time to comment on the Reddit post about this, but one of the things I do have to say is I really liked Classification's latest concept. I thought it was really cool for like their idea. If anyone didn't watch it, basically their round is conducting like experiments to see like what kind of different play styles and like stuff and like different types of people. Like, sorry, I'm really bad at explaining this. God, why did you invite me onto this podcast, Tom? I'm so bad at this.
It's scientific
You're doing
experiments,
great, sweetie.
basically.
Yes,
Hypothesis is game modes to test that conclusion kind of dealio.
Yeah.
Science.
But anyway, I really like this season because basically each team of two was given a separate biome that was like their preferred biome to like fight in. And the I'm pretty sure the map had like different like the map was sent to like different sections with a large amount of biomes, and basically the idea was the winning team would show like which is the ultimate best biome to fight in, like theoretically. And like I thought that was just a really cool idea for their concept. I just want to give them a shout out for that because I thought that was really cool.
Yeah.
I love Classification's concept, and I think it like season 4 is probably their gold standard, but I think ultimately the concept as a whole is really neat, and there's a lot of things they can do with that. And on top of the concept, I like it's really easy to make an aesthetic with Classification, which I've made 2 of the intros. But part of the reason why I was so excited, especially with season 6's intro, is because I really wanted to capture that like experiment, like, you know, bright white room with in a laboratory with scientists who hold clipboards, and I don't know, creepy dystopian movie where someone gets experimented on. Like, that type of aesthetic is really easy to capture with Classification because the idea is specifically, you know, experiments. But on top of that, I think there's so many things you can change about the game while also trying to measure what's being changed. Which, yeah, I mean, that's pretty much what I have to say. That's specifically why I love Classification so much, but I also think there's so much more they can do with it in the future, so I hope they continue down that path.
What was season 4's game mode specifically? Because I know
that was the FFA Infinite Allies, or Limited Allies, I should say.
Oh, okay.
And they had anvils at specific chords in the map, so you had to go there to
and
meet
Mumble
up.
as well.
Okay.
Which, like, that was, I mean, probably the magnum opus of game modes they could have done, because it actually takes an idea that's very specific, and then you can actually, I mean, if you wanted to write it down yourself, you could write down how people interacted throughout the season and freaking investigate that if you're some hacking nerd. But we don't have to do a full statistical analysis of a recorded round that happened last year.
Yeah, it's a bit late on that. Yeah,
just a little.
I like the concept. It's got a nice presentation each season. I like what they do with the whole science jig. It's always just nice the season.
Forest River.
Of course you did. I think unless anyone has anything notable to say on other rounds, we're going to move on. First of all, I'm going to mention that the reason that this RR roundup is so brief is because I am currently planning on either next week or in 2 weeks, we're going to be doing another episode of the RR podcast, and it is going to be a big ol' RR Roundup episode with some hardcore RR Watcher guests. We're going to go through everything. We're going to talk about everything. It's just this one we had a bit more of a focus, so we want to move on to that. Stay tuned for that in the future. You will get your... People are figuring it out in chat. You'll get your RR Roundup stuff in the future, but for now, hey, Brody's back as well. Just in time, we are going to move on to the next topic, because due to the nature of the guests we have here, we're going to have a bit of a banter about RR production and the behind-the-scenes making of rounds, which I don't have much contribution towards, because I've never done anything like that. I just organize shit. So I'm interested in seeing the perspectives of all of you folk from the range of the range of times where you were making shit for rounds. So, yeah. Anyone has anything to talk about or any points they want to bring up about our production stuff? Go ahead.
I guess there's something easy to start with. Something that I've been kind of expecting for a long time was that there was a point where I would do a lot of production, like a hefty chunk of it for the whole community. And even though obviously I could only do so much, there was certain times where I would just pump stuff out really fast, and that would end up heavily increasing the amount of rounds that would come out. I kind of started to wonder, like, what's going to happen when the current production people start to fall off and be less interested in it. So, like, there was me, Lux, Hannah. We were all very active at one point, not necessarily only doing renders, but intros as well, and logos even for me. And then recently we've all started losing interest, and I know that we're not the only ones, but just 3 easy examples. It seems like right now a lot of older intro makers, render makers, etc. are really starting to lose their interest. And I'm interested, or I should say in the past I was interested about where that was going to go. And I feel like we're already starting to see the effects of that now that people are just, especially the old people, are generally less motivated.
I think it's a cycle that you're going to see with everyone, and I think you have seen it throughout the years. It's one of those things where, as enjoyable as it is, it does become very repetitive after a long time. And it does start, and again, obviously, as people grow up, they get more responsibilities. Like, obviously, I used to do so many rounds. There was definitely points where, like, I don't know when I was doing the most, but there were definitely points where, like, in a month, I would be doing like 200 renders, and it was just complete way too much, and that's definitely what caused me to just burn out. And I think you see that a lot. I see it a lot with kind of new upcoming kind of intro makers and render makers, and they just make a shit ton, and then they just can't do anymore because it's just not fun, and you really need to balance it.
There's only so many ways you can pose a funny Minecraft character, and once you run out of poses, what are you gonna do? Not want to make them anymore, that's for sure.
Can I ask a question about production? So, like, just people in general. One thing I considered doing in the past, and I don't know how popular of thing. I don't think many people have ever talked about this. Like, every new round, or like every new season of a round, always seems to have like brand new renders. Has anyone ever thought about just using the same renders every season? Like, I mean, as you say, there's only so many ways you can pose a character, like for every render. So, like, has anyone ever thought about just using the same render for each season, similar to like the same art for every season? Like, is
I don't personally have idea. I don't know.
I think it's different when you're talking about art and renders.
Yeah.
If you're an organizer and you're willing to pay a certain amount for different art every season, then good on you. I know that Conception, they would do different art every season, a different style. That's fine. For renders, though, I think, like, for me personally, like, if I'm watching an intro and, like, it's very easy to tell the renders, then it's like, all right, so you would definitely make intro production much faster because then you're not waiting God knows how long for certain renders to be made. Because I know there are some render makers now that they like schedule when they're going to make certain renders for certain rounds. So if you're at the bottom of that, then you're going to be waiting for a while. But using the same renders for a round constantly I just don't ever think will be normal.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, it would make sense, like you said. Like, there's nothing about it that doesn't make sense, really. Like, it just makes sense. But I don't really think I could ever see that happening, because it would get boring. It would get stale. You would easily notice it too. And I think, like you said, like there are different, like how many different ways can you pose like a certain character? I think like there are some rounds now. Like I know Casino does it, where like different people wear like different skins, and you make a render based on that skin. So that's something cool. And it's more because like making themed renders is something that I've been noticing a lot lately. But if you're just using normal renders and you do the same renders every season, it won't look right. It'll definitely speed things up, but even then, it just won't be normal, in my opinion.
Yeah. I think there is a lot of ways of making them different, and I think you need to obviously, when it comes to just posing, it definitely can get stale, and it can be like, oh, what do I do now? Is this just the same thing I've been doing? But I think there is lots of ways you can kind of make the renders relate to a specific season. I know I was kind of one of the people who started doing that. Obviously, like Out of Orbit was the first who kind of started making them look kind of space themed, and I started doing some stuff with Back in Time. Obviously, I did the season 4 renders where I had a bunch of Egyptian skins, and I did the season 6 renders, which were like the Ice Age ones. And those are definitely some of my favorites, just because of how like unique they are compared to what you would normally do. But even when you're not using different skins, there's lots of different, just the concept of a round can change a lot, like how you make them look. Like the renders I did for like TDC look pretty different for the renders I did for like Infusion, just because of the kind of the like obviously for the intro specifically, those intros have such different kind of color schemes that the renders just don't. They need to look different.
Well,
I feel like
you were comparing it to like art. I do think one thing to note is that people usually pay for art, so they have a little bit more of a say in how it's used. But with renders, it's usually done for free. So if a render maker, which at least for me, this is usually my case, I don't want to use old renders because I can tell the difference. I can tell the difference between a render I made 3 months ago and one I made yesterday, just because that's how often the style changes for me and how
I agree.
I make a change that is noticeable. Yeah, Hannah, you were going to say something?
I also feel like I unlike these people, I think that it could potentially work. I think people could reuse renders and it would be fine, because it really doesn't matter. But I feel like it would only work if the person who's making the renders is also the organizer of the round, because I'm in some rounds. Like if Cinema, for example, asked me to make renders every season, I probably wouldn't want to commit to that. But if like I mean, I'm committed to making the renders every season for Casino, even if I don't have motivation, because it's my
that makes
thing.
sense. Yeah, that makes sense. Yeah.
I mean, I can say right now there is a round in the works that I am planning on reusing renders for, just because I don't necessarily have a lot of time before I go off to college, and the organizer doesn't want to waste a lot of time waiting. So we're going to do that. But the thing is, I'm still very picky about what I'm comfortable reusing and what I'm not comfortable reusing, because obviously, I mean, I've used a different rig throughout my time, but also even renders with the same rig. Like you can look at my first renders and then the last renders with that rig. Like I'm talking like Lore 3 as compared to like TGF 8. I mean, those renders are wildly different. I mean, you wouldn't even be able to tell they're by the same person if you looked at the two.
No, you can tell. I even me who I used the same rig for my entire time doing renders, and maybe it's not as noticeable people who don't really pay the attention or people who don't make renders, but I know for a fact that if I look at because I have a playlist on my channel which has all the intros, and if I just watch through that, I can see them changing, and it's still like the last intro I did renders for, which was Infusion. That I when I watch that, I immediately say those are my best work, and not every single one, but generally I'm like, yeah, that's my best work, and then I look lower down and I see how I've changed and how I've improved, and it's one of those things that I don't think reusing renders is inherently bad, but I don't think it will become the norm, and I don't think it should become the norm. But if the organizers weigh up the pros and cons and they decide that's the best way to go, then that's the best way to go.
I really appreciate how in-depth that discussion went. I wasn't expecting it. Thank you. I don't think it's God, I never thought that it was like an amazing idea. I just thought it was like an interesting point of discussion because I know I thought about it at one point, but I do agree that it probably might get stale at some point. But I also think it would speed up production a lot, which is one of the reasons why I know some rounds take a lot longer to come out than others these days. I've noticed that the intro isn't the thing that sometimes takes the longest. It's actually the renders.
Because renders are really time consuming.
They are, yeah.
And in part, having worked on both, I think sometimes it does depend on the intro, but like there are times where I'm really motivated on an intro and I'm feeling it, or I really like the song, or I really like the idea I'm rolling with, and that motivates me to finish it really fast. But with renders, you don't get that same instant feedback. And like even music, I mean, you usually use music you like if you're an intro maker. So being able to hear the song that you like as you're working on it, I mean, if it fits the aesthetic you're going for, if it fits the work you're putting into it, then yeah, it's really like exciting and motivating to keep on working on it. But with renders, again, it's like you see the picture and you like it, but is that really enough to motivate you, especially with the amount of time you spend making the renders and not like extruding the renders instead of actually making them? It's a very unrewarding task sometimes.
Yeah, so I spend like 30 minutes on a render probably on average. So if that's a 30-player roster, then I'm doing like 15 hours of work, usually for free and usually or a lot of the time for something that I'm not invested in at all, like I'm not even in the round. And then a lot of the time, like with intros and art, I feel like people recognize what makes them good a lot more than people recognize renders. Like I could put in so much effort into a set of renders and people will be like, yeah, it's okay. And then I'll make one that I think is really shitty and people will be like, wow, that's really good. And that is very demotivating because I feel like a lot of people just can't tell the difference and that makes it
Yeah. There's
makes you
definitely a
feel
lot less
like you should
discussion
just
around it.
not put in effort.
But I don't want to like make it seem like we're dissuading people from making them because I enjoy my time making them. I think it's one of those
Down with
things where
render makers.
it's one of those things where I think you need to kind of just weigh up and not burn out on it because that's, I think, as I said earlier, the problem that a lot of people get into. But yeah, no, they take time. Like I agree with Hannah. Usually, I'd say average half an hour to make a render. They are time consuming. Obviously, they're not as flashy as art, but they take a lot of effort.
Yeah. Obviously, I don't have much to contribute on the production front, but it's a thing that has kind of influenced a lot of the organization decisions I've made for rounds. Like both rounds organized now, TDC and Phobia, we primarily go with art now and consistent art because of troubles in the past with renders and people taking a long time because a lot of times it's people who are not motivated to do the renders at the time, so it takes ages. So we just kind of go with art because it's something we can consistently use each time and keep production fast, or as fast as we can. Ignore the gaps we've had in organization in the recent times. But yeah, it's a very weird thing to be on the outside looking in on, because of just the nature of it, of this very time-consuming task that people work on every round, every season, for very little compensation every time. It's one of those things where if you just describe it to someone who's not familiar with like how the community works, it's like such a preposterous idea of like these people sitting here spending hours and hours and hours contributing to something they're not involved in with no kind of, not even necessarily talking about like monetary like pay or just some kind of like payback for what they've done. It's an odd concept, and it's just kind of been established due to the kind of the precedent of the community. It's always been like that. Why change now? The kind of deal.
Also, even if people charge for renders, a lot of the time it'll probably be like $1 per render or something like that.
People
And
don't want to spend the money.
people
The
won't.
problem.
People feel like they would rather spend money on art, like if they're going to spend money, if that makes sense.
I mean, there's always someone that's gonna be charging renders for free.
Yeah.
Yeah,
too.
and also, I mean, in general, a lot of the people in the community are still young and they don't have a huge income. So when it comes to spending money, it's always like, if you don't have to, why would you? And I completely understand that, to be honest, but it does suck.
The subreddit has the subreddit's kind of, again, due to precedent of years and years of doing stuff like this. The subreddit has put this value on art. Of this art takes a long time to do, and art looks very good. Art should cost money. I'm not saying it shouldn't. Obviously, it absolutely should. But that value that is on art isn't seen the same way on renders. Even though the renders do look good and they do take a lot of time. They, in theory, should also be paid for, but people don't view them that way. It's just kind of seen as, oh, you just do it for free and it's nice, thank you.
That's an interesting point. Yeah.
I mean,
you go on.
Yeah, I mean, if I were to work minimum wage, that's $7.25 in America. People aren't willing to pay something even close to that, like $5 per hour of work. And if it takes me 5 to 10 hours, I mean, that'll at least come out to $25, and that's if we're like lowballing every number. But most importantly, when you think of that, people don't want to spend that kind of money every single season for their round. I mean, if you were to spend $100 having coders and render makers and intro makers and logo makers working for you every season, that's just not a sound investment. One of the appeals, I think, of rounds for a lot of organizers is that they can kind of make it themselves, but they don't necessarily have to dish out a ton of money. And if they do, it's kind of a self-elected choice. Like, you make the choice to get the step up in quality of getting art or of paying someone to code so that you get, a higher level quality or whatever. Whereas if you choose to do it the other way, then you get stuff for free. You just may not have as much say over the quality, or it really depends on who you're asking and what you're asking for and all that.
Yeah, just going back to what Dom said about the community kind of having a precedent of not paying for renders and paying for art. I think that was something that I noticed, because obviously I didn't immediately start out in the Reddit community doing renders, because my first ever job was doing renders for UHC on Air, for one of their trailers, and then after that I also did, I think, Baguette, like one of the Baguette seasons, which Gwep, I think, DM me about, and in both of those I got paid, because obviously these are bigger kind of things where these people are doing it, and they generally have an audience, and they're getting kind of, they're getting paid for these UHC events. They make money from it, so they have that precedent of paying for it. Whereas obviously the Reddit community is such a smaller little thing, which in general, I mean, people are just doing it for fun. It's not this kind of business. It's just kind of, it's fun to do these rounds, and it's fun to, renders and intros and art, they all look cool and we like them, but it's definitely I don't know. I mean, it makes sense, but it is what it is. I don't really see it changing, unfortunately, because as Brody said, there's always going to be someone doing it for free, and people are going to choose them.
Also, even if nobody does it for free, I feel like organizers will just start doing their own renders, because it really isn't that hard. It's just time consuming and intimidating at first.
I mean, it's always cool to see more people getting into production and starting doing their own things.
I mean, I do think one thing though, Hannah, you're right. I've advised people to not make renders before because of how life-sucking it can be sometimes. But another thing is, if you want to get good at making renders, it's not something you can just do overnight. I mean, no one starts at the top of the ladder, and you learn a lot of things as you go along. But if I were to only have made renders for each season of lore, just, that being one round, and that was the only round I made renders for, the progression from being bad to getting good would have been a lot slower. And again, it's just not necessarily feasible for organizers who want to start at the top, because everyone wants to start at the top, of course, that's normal, but you learn as you make more, and the amount it takes to actually get really comfortable with what you're making and really confident about what you're doing is way too high for the eventual payout.
I don't necessarily agree. I feel like some people can, you can get better at render making without making a set of renders. Like, if you just make one or two, I don't think that's that much different than making 20, because realistically you're going to be putting the same amount of effort or the same like thought process into each render in one set. So like, what's the difference if you only make 5 rather than 30?
It depends how you approach it, really. If you're just
Yeah.
doing it, because I think when you do those big sets of renders, like 30 plus, after the first few, it does become almost like a mindless. It does get to the point where it's just this muscle memory kind of thing.
Yeah.
I feel like a lot. When I'm doing a big round set, I'm not really thinking after the first few. I'm just kind of, I know what buttons to click and I know what to do, so it just kind of does that. Whereas if you actually take the time to kind of think, okay, like, what do I want to change? What do I want to improve? Then you're going to see big changes. It's one of those things where there's a difference between doing something and kind of really thinking about it, because it's one of those things, unlike, I think, art, you can do it pretty mindlessly. And I'm not saying it doesn't require any skill. It just, it's a different kind of, it requires different skills than art does.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Obviously, I don't have anything to add. Yeah, I just the only thing I could really contribute to this is just the perspective of the outside looking in, just seeing the kind of the poor situation. It's not even necessarily a bad situation. It's just kind of an unfortunate situation that the like render makers are in, of just being like, it's just how it is. Because my perspective on it is, renders in reality should be paid for. If people charge for them, people will just go to the free person. Everyone will go to the free person. The free person will get burnt out as fuck because everyone's asking to make renders. And then it's just everyone just goes on the same level. As soon as someone goes free, everyone swarms to them. They get burnt out. And the pile of burnt out render makers, or render makers who aren't like too, focused on making renders, just the pool grows bigger and bigger, and every time you always lose those who are like super passionate and doing it for free, because the community just swarms them. And it's just like they're the person, they're the render maker.
Yeah, and I think the reason that happens is just because of how niche of a concept render making, for like how niche of a concept it is, really. Because obviously with artists, generally these people, they've grown up loving art, and they've done art at school, and it's something that is a part of them. Whereas a lot of, you don't grow up making fucking Minecraft renders. It's just something that you do, and then you kind of get burnt out on it. Yeah,
art's a very transferable skill. You can do a lot. If you're good at art, if you're good at making art for Minecraft intros, you can put that in a lot of good uses. Like, a lot of people who do make really good art in the community have Twitters for their art, and they get followings, and they get attention for the art they do because it's really good, and it's just art they do elsewhere. You can't make a render Twitter. You can't make a Twitter where you're just like, hey, I made the render for this person. Like,
I'll prove you wrong on that.
Oh god.
I will be the first. I'm proud to announce my campaign to create a Twitter render account. Yeah. So get excited, guys.
I'm sure you could. I'm sure you could make like a render Twitter in some like sections of the community, but it would have to involve some other like graphic design.
Yeah, and it couldn't just be character models. It would have to be kind of
it would have to be like making banners or profile pictures or something.
Yeah, you couldn't just like in the vein of you could do like RR intro levels of art, and you could put that on Twitter and get attention for it. You couldn't do RR intro renders and then just put them on Twitter and like market your whole like Twitter feed or something off of that. It has to be like it has to be themed. It has to be for some certain purpose. It has to be so like specific and niche and like on demand. Like you just couldn't do it. You just couldn't get that attention. It's such a specific skill.
Yeah.
There's like a few people that are willing to pay for renders. I think I've been paid like once or twice for like thumbnails and like just a render for a thumbnail. Like in recorded rounds, there's like so many recorded rounds that people are not willing to pay for them, and like there's more and more recorded rounds being created, so there's more and more renders needed, more intros needed, more logos needed, so you always need more people to make them. People get tired, like more people leave, so like starting to have more rounds and like not enough new people getting into intros, logos, and renders.
Yeah, I started charging for renders like a year ago at this point. I've been asked like since then I've been asked maybe by like 3 or 4 people, and before that I would be asked multiple times a month. It's not equal at all, which makes sense, obviously. It's just
Yeah, it's one of those things on both sides. I understand. Like, I completely understand wanting to be paid for renders. You know, it makes sense. But I also completely understand not wanting to pay for your rounds renders because at the end of the day, as I said, the RR community is such this small community that you know people are just doing it for fun, and it's not like this kind of investment really. It's just it's fun doing it.
Yeah, it was interesting for me getting a little glimpse into into a different view on things, being involved in some non-Reddit kind of more YouTube style UHCs and RRs, and just seeing the very different mindset they have. Obviously, Brody, well, yeah, Brody got paid. You got paid for stuff as well, and Tiago, you got paid for other YouTube stuff as well. It's just it's very interesting seeing just the immediate mindset of just being like, okay, we're gonna get someone to work on this project. Okay, you're gonna make the intro. How much do you want for it? You're gonna do renders. How much do you want for them? Like I remember, like in particular, I remember when working with basically B on the early seasons of Flux. She's looking for an intro recommendation. I recommended Gus because she liked his intros, and like the idea of Gus just making intros for RRs for free was like this insane concept of just like you put your time and effort into intros for this YouTube series and you're charging nothing for it. It's like such a foreign concept in that side of RRs. And here, obviously, I think due to the fact that it is a more small community, we just kind of do it all for free. It's interesting seeing both sides of the same.
In part, I think it's just because we do it more out of our own personal. You know, it's not necessarily like it'd be one thing if it was a one-sided deal where you're making money off of it. Because again, look at those big YouTubers; they have their big YouTube series, and that gets a lot of them views. That gets them probably ad revenue, etc. Or maybe it doesn't. I don't know. I'm not a YouTube
you
super
really know with YouTube
super
nowadays.
brain person, but I would feel a little more taken advantage of if I didn't get paid by someone who's already making, and I won't say they're making a ton of money, but if they're making a reasonable amount of money off of the fact that I provided them renders, I might be a little more inclined to want payment over a UHC recorded round on the subreddit that is just kind of doing their own thing, because there is a difference.
I mean, for me personally, like I know if like this is gonna sound like pretty weird, but if one of my friends, like if I'm organizing around one of my friends, I'm like, hey, can you make your renders? And they say, yeah, but can I charge you? I'm not gonna say no, especially if I know they make good renders. I feel like the idea of paying someone $1 a render isn't like such a bad thing. I think it's just the idea that people don't want to pay for something that they see so easy to do, yet they won't do it themselves. I think that's where the main issue comes, is that like we discussed this earlier, that's like people feel more inclined to pay for art than they do for renders, which we've already said doesn't make sense, but I feel inclined to pay for both, especially if they ask me to. Like I don't feel inclined to be like, oh, should I be paying you for this? But if they say like I charge, I'm not going to say no because you're charging me, because I think it's a little ridiculous, especially if you know that they've made good stuff in the past. I think that's there's a divide there, I think.
I think there's also the fact that like smaller roster tends to have art more often because it's easier to get, and like bigger roster are gonna go get renders because they won't want to pay for like 40 or 50 art.
Yeah.
They
also don't want to wait for it either.
More work, yeah.
Well, that goes back to why when we were saying about reusing renders and reusing art, and obviously the reason that in general people reuse art is because of the fact that it's they don't want to pay and they don't want to wait. I'm sure if art was somehow in this weird vein in the community like renders are, where it wasn't normal to pay for them, then I'm sure you probably would see a lot of new art for each season as you do with renders, to be honest.
Probably.
I mean, reusing renders could work, but I feel like you'd have to change intro makers, or like it could feel too similar and like you could confuse them.
Yeah.
With like Conception, which is probably the round that a lot of people think of when they think new art every season. Up until like the season that just came out, I guess not just came out like a year ago, but up until that season, they were getting the art for free, so that probably contributed to it. Like I'm sure if they were paying since the beginning, they would have found an art style that they liked and stuck with it.
Yeah, I don't think Teresa would have paid every new season for another set of 20.
I don't think anyone would.
Yeah,
The money, the amount of
Uh,
money that art does cost. And again, this is going to sound like bitching and moaning about art costing money, but it rightfully does cost what it does. But having to pay that much money like every season would be no one, no matter how much money they had, would be willing to do that because it's just
Didn't-
such
Also,
a
And
you
there's
have, to,
also,
you have to
like,
keep in mind that art takes forever.
so much longer.
Oh,
No
yeah.
one's willing
Yeah,
to pay the amount that they would need to pay to have an artist basically be on retainer. And recorded rounds, I feel like generally most organizers aim or hope to have the recorded round out between 2 and 4 months, maybe 6 months on the high end, depending on like what they're looking for. But generally, no one is going to pay enough to have an artist basically work for them 24/7 for
No.
2-3 weeks to get the art done. It's just a ridiculous amount, especially to have to pay every single season.
Didn't Instinct have like pay for different art through seasons like 5 to 8 or something like that?
Yeah, they did have different. They have had lots of different. I know some of them were kind of like pixel art styles, and obviously there was that one with I think Danny did 2 of them. Yeah,
Okay.
I remember that round changing quite a bit. But it does just depend on how willing the organizer. It depends how much the round is interested in production, and that's one of those things where it's like, how important is production? And I think there's arguments for both sides because, but like you look at rounds like Paradox, like I'm sure that round takes a lot longer to produce because the intros are really really great and the game modes are really great, so it makes sense that kind of stuff would take longer than the average kind of. I'm not trying to imply that those kind of things don't require skill, but they're generally faster. Just get some renders, get an intro maker, and it's out in a few months, 3 months.
Mm-hmm.
Much simpler, less tedious.
Yeah, simpler. Yeah, that's a better word.
Yeah, I've definitely seen the trend recently where there's definitely some organizers that are trying to go for render maker that take the less time to make a whole batch of render. I think like EGL has been getting really popular for like non-rated rounds for that season, for that reason, and like I think he's been starting to make rounds for like a few rated rounds now. I think he's definitely gonna pop up for that one reason. I think he can make rounds like for like an entire round. Like he's gonna make all the renders like in one day sometimes, and it's kind of crazy.
Yeah, I think it's completely fair for someone to prioritize speed, and I think it's completely fair to prioritize a really bombastic intro.
Yeah.
When are intros going to start coming out with that art or renders and just names? Like, that's not even a joke. Like,
I mean, it's
Minecraft did
happened.
that at
It's
one
There is
point.
a few.
Well, I
There
mean,
is a
it does
few.
happen every now and
When is it
again.
going to be
but it's not-
normalized, though?
I don't think
I don't know
ever
if it
will
ever
be.
will be.
I don't think it ever will be normalized.
That
I
doesn't
think-
mean it won't happen more regularly, but it won't ever be normalized. Like it will
I
not
think
be the
that
norm.
yeah.
It's
I mean, the main
it's just
problem is that people would always prefer an intro with like either art or renders than an intro without the renders.
it's just another problem with just the precedent of things. It's like our arts have existed for what, like 7 years now, over 7 years probably, of just you make an intro, it has renders or art or something like that. Oh, the earliest intros just had like basic pixel art faces of like Minecraft characters, but then it grew and people would get bigger and better and more show offy as time went on. So now we've reached the point where the standard is renders or art, and I don't think that it would be a hell of a task to shut down that precedent and that standard because it's just
Yeah, I
what the
think-
community's
yeah.
used to over the years.
I think even ignoring the precedent when you refer to like Minecraft, the later Minecraft intros, I think the reason that for the just text intros work so well for those kind of things is because the people who play Minecraft, their names are very recognizable and their names can kind of carry that. Whereas obviously in a small little subset community, just a name of someone doesn't really carry that same weight. So you kind of want to have the visuals to look nicer. But I don't see an issue with them. I think they look nice as long as they're well edited. You know, the intros can look good.
Yeah.
Few interesting points I've noted from chat and all this, apart from whatever the fuck they're talking about right now. It's just I think Brody mentioned this at one point. It's just also just due to the nature of how many rounds exist and how many can still continue to exist. As we talked about in the RR Roundup, we saw a big climb in season 1s recently in particular. It's just as more rounds exist, as more people make rounds and more people want to make rounds, the demand just gets higher and higher and higher. And especially, I think, in this current state, I do not think that the render maker, kind of the render makers that do exist, are growing to accommodate that. And it's, you know, it's ridiculous to ask them to, but it's just an observation that exists, that we are getting way more rounds, and it's like pretty much the same render makers this whole time. And it's just, all it's doing is just putting way more pressure on the ones that already exist.
Well, I think it's always been that thing where there's only been 2 or 3 at a time. You know, like when I started making them, it was Majora. And then near the end of the time, I started Majora and Phenom did them, and it was kind of just us for a while, and then Majora stopped, and Phenom doesn't do them very often, but he still did them. Then Lux started making them, and it was kind of just me and Lux for a long time. And then obviously now more people kind of come in for a little bit and came in. Obviously, I can't speak for now. Obviously, Kyle and Hannah made a lot for a bit, and obviously I kind of dropped off then. But you do see these kind of groups. It's like 2 or 3 people, and they make it for a long time, and then slowly it's never more than that. I feel like it's never more than 2 or 3 people at a time, which is I find very interesting actually.
Yeah, there's been like one new render maker, which is Edgular, in the past like few months.
I mean, there's been several, but
Tanner also started.
Well, yeah, but
people who consistently make them.
I phrased that poorly. I meant like people who are making renders for a lot of recorded rounds.
Yeah.
Like there's Tanner and Frost and DJ, but they make like maybe 1 or 2 sets of renders.
Yeah.
There's only one new person who's making like a lot.
Yeah, that's what I was referring to. Yeah.
And that
like
that's
each year, like in the past month, I was like at least 10 rounds where he made renders for that release. It takes a lot of time, and like if EGL quits like right now, it's like people are not going to be able to get their renders. Like, because right now with the other render maker left, they basically we don't have enough to like to make renders for everyone.
Yeah.
Although I think something else to consider is that it's not just about renders; it's also about intros and production as a whole.
Yeah.
Because
I'm just talking.
Yeah, it applies to everything.
Effective, yeah.
I think there's more to this discussion than just about what we were just discussing, but more so the future of it as a whole. Because I remember mentioning this at the beginning, that I feel like I'm already starting to see the next wave starting to kind of emerge. Like we're past the point where I'm wondering, what's it going to be like? I'm already starting to see it, and I don't know how I feel about it so far. So in terms of comments I have for that as a whole, right now, I'm hoping to see more exciting changes in the future rather than seeing less exciting changes in the future. I'm hoping generally to see new intros that'll be like stuff I could expect to see in the top 100, but I don't know if I'm necessarily seeing that right now, and that's something that worries me because again, I've always wondered where the downfall is going to come in production, when it's going to start to level out. I mean, the UHC community won't be around forever. It might last longer than people expected, but I definitely don't think it's going to be, and it's always going to be changing. But yeah, Lloyd.
I mean, wow. They've been
the RR podcast. Don't call me that here.
Everyone keeps on saying that the community is gonna die at some point. They've been saying it for years. They've been saying it since like forever. It's gonna take something big for the community to just collapse. Also, I don't remember who said it in the chat earlier. I think it was Will. I haven't really seen any intros this year that have like been like whoa. Like, yeah, no, I completely agree. Yeah, there have been a bunch of like good ones. Don't get me wrong. It's not like every intro this year has been awful, but I can't think of one intro that I've seen this year that was like, wow, yeah, this is the next one. This one's next up. This is a good one. it's kind of weird because I remember like in 2019, I felt like there was like a bunch of good ones coming out like every week, and I was like, whoa,
Venom was doing a really good job last year. He did some really great stuff.
Venom did a bunch, and that was 2019, right? Yeah.
And
because think about the last top 100. Like you had like his Cinema 6, right?
Yeah, 6, yeah.
His Cinema 6 intro was insane.
Yeah, and then obviously All Stars 5.
And then that made I think was that number 1 or number 2?
That was number 2, and then TGF. Bushy's TGF was season.
So you see a bunch of those intros coming out that year. This year there hasn't really been a lot. Now maybe it's because that like the intro makers who usually make like those like top 10 intros aren't making as many. But like I agree with Bobby. Like when Bitextual was making intros all the time, all of Bitextual's intros were like, whoa, okay, this one's like really good. Whenever Venom makes an intro, you're like, this is really good. Whenever Len made an intro, most of the time Len intros were like really good. So when you see the same intro makers making these same intros basically all the time, it really like it's very noticeable. And like I haven't seen an intro this year where I would like see this like, oh yeah, this is top 10 on the next top 100 list. I have a feeling if another top 100 list comes soon, because we always see like recency bias in the top 100. Like when that Nudon intro came out, I don't know if you guys remember. That was number 1, and then like the next year, I don't even think it was on the list. Right?
It was. I think it was still.
Oh, it was 10. Still pretty high.
Was it?
It was Cryptic's only intro on the top 100, and the like average between the 2 years was like really low or something.
My point being is that I don't think we're gonna see any recency bias for another top 100 because
I agree.
What has come out recent, like I think the top 10 will be more or less the same, but All Stars 5 will be in there this time. So All Stars 5, All Stars 3 and 4 will always be top 15 for the most part. I feel like that's always going to happen. Out of Orbit 7 will always be up there. If Cinema 5 wasn't one maybe it'll be one this year. Who knows? The point is that like a lot of the intros that are coming out now they look the same to me. And I've said this before. I caught myself where like the intro is like in quotes the least important part of the season. It's really not, because
definitely.
because I used to think that people going crazy over intros were like why? Like what's the point? Because you're only watching the intro once and then you're watching the season, because a lot of people don't put the intro in their perspective for the most part anyway. Or not as many people as, usually. So the fact that like to me I was like the fact that people are going crazy over intros is so weird. But now like when I think about it, like I'm watching more intros than I am this season. Mm-hmm. Like definitely.
That's like, the thing that gives me the only impression I'll have of some rounds.
So like if like I see like, oh, this intro was put a lot of work into it, your first impression is that okay, maybe the season's really good. Now that's not always the case, but I think like with every intro looking more like the only intro, I hate to sound biased, but like Kaoki's intro, all the Ambition intros to me are kind of the same, but they're at least different from everything else. So Ambition intros are the same as Ambition intros, and then Ambition intros aren't the same as like, for example, like a Phobia intro. I think those rounds have like specific intro styles and specific music styles as well. Like I think like if I were to play an Ambition intro song to you, you'd be able to know it was like you'd be able to maybe pick out the season, but you would know like, oh, this is probably an Ambition song. Same thing with Phobia. It was something I've been noticing, Tom, lately. Is that I tend to associate certain music with certain rounds, if that makes sense. But I think if like we talk about production and renders, they're not going to mean much soon if all the intros aren't phenomenal, I guess. Because like why? Like because when I think of an intro, oh wow, the renders for this one really good, or oh the art was really good. But if I'm looking at the renders, like the renders are really good, but then the intro is not. Like what am I supposed to think of that then at that point? It's very strange.
This year's top 100 intros, I think, will be the first time where it's less about how has the last year impacted the list, and is more about how have these intros
how well has something aged.
There will be some impactors. All Stars 5 is inevitably going to be like a top 3 intro. Mm-hmm. And there's definitely going to be some like late 2019 ones that will do decently well. But I think it's just going to be. I feel like the top, like at least like the top 20, top 30 is just going to be like just the last year's one just shaken up a bit.
Mm-hmm.
There
I
might
also
be some
think
of that.
unless like because the way Kanako did it last year was like weird that none of the number ones could be in the list again, which I wasn't a fan because I really want to see how they would stack up against. Oh, that's why I thought that it wasn't on the list. The Nudon because it was number one and Kanako didn't let the number one.
Oh yeah,
That's
correct.
why. That's
Yeah.
why. So I think that was not a great way of doing it. First of all, I think every intro should have been allowed to be on there. But then it makes you think like, all right, where is this one going to place on the list? Because we'll every year, Dom, like whenever we do the top 100 one, we're always like, oh, this intro just wasn't on the list. Like how?
Yeah.
But I think what's the one that dropped like a lot? There was one that was Instinct.
Instinct.
Yeah, that one dropped a ton. And when we were doing the episode for it, we were like, yeah, it's because it just came out. And it wasn't a bad. It was a good intro, good enough to where
definitely good intro.
you could see it put in the top 5. But then the next year, it just dropped, and it's
It
like,
didn't
yeah,
even drop that much. It went from 5 to 14, which is noticeable,
but
but
out of
not
top,
huge.
but getting knocked out of top 5 by things that weren't even the top 10 the year before is like
it's noticeable because not the ones that knocked it out weren't necessarily new intros.
Yeah.
So I think a lot of these, I think a lot of, so it depends on really who makes the top 100 too. But I think the next top 100 that comes out is going to be very strange because it's going to be more or less the same list. And then you're going to see maybe a handful of 2020 intros, and you're like, oh, that's right. That's what's going to happen, I think. Because as I've said, is that the intros this year have not been anything special, really.
Yeah, and I think you definitely, in a little more detail, explained how I feel about the future of production. It's more so that I don't necessarily know if I'm seeing a lot of new, exciting intros. I don't think the future of production is looking very bright right now, which, I mean, maybe that's just very pessimistic of me, but I feel like we've always had something interesting to bring to the table, and right now I'm not seeing that. So something that I do have to advise generally is, even though production may not seem like it's that important, and even though it probably shouldn't be as important as it is, because you obviously want to work on making a cinematic experience for your round, also you need to put a lot into production, even if it's more than you can handle, because again, a lot of people's only impressions of round, or something that'll even be the only thing that causes them to consider watching a round, is the production. And something that looks and feels good is something that makes me actually want to watch around.
I think also when you guys there's always like 3 render makers at a time. New render makers don't show up until they have to, really.
Yeah.
Because
people are so used to just getting so many.
Yeah, like when Tiago stopped, everyone's like, "Oh my god, what do we do? Like, what is it to do now? Like, I can't make renders. I know you can't." And then someone's like, all right, I'll make renders. And then that's how a new render maker is born, basically, for the most part. I didn't know Brodator was making renders for a while, and then he started making them, and then I started seeing them, like they were like really good. I'm like, okay, so here's the render maker pool for the next 6 months. And then and then you see who shows up later. But like you were right, Tiago, like it was you, Majora, and Phenom at one time. But I think you did a lot because Majora really didn't do as many as you and Phenom did. And then Phenom, when he did them, they were like over the top and they're like really good. So your renders were consistent and happening more often. Whereas now you see a good mix of everyone's renders that's making renders at the moment for the most part. So I really do think that it's going you can't just get someone to start making renders, really. It's going to take someone to stop making renders to get someone to start making renders, which is ridiculous. But I know, obviously I say that, but I'm never going to make renders probably. So, but it's also the same thing with art as well, where the same people are making art. You see either Danny art, you see Julian's art with abstraction. I think she only does abstraction. I'm trying to think who else makes art. Whoever made the Dire Straits art, that art was pretty good.
Evan.
Oh yeah, Evan's art has always been
also
good.
Ninja starting to be used a few runs.
Oh yeah. Place a couple times.
But I think the production value of intros especially is starting to go down, and it's very noticeable because of how intro quality is. So you can hide subpar renders. For example, I'm not saying anyone here makes subpar renders, obviously, but you can hide subpar renders behind a really good intro. Basically, you can hide art behind a very good intro. You can't hide really good renders in a really bad intro, because if someone's making really good renders and then the intro maker just drops the ball, it's going to be noticeable, because you can't just do like a PowerPoint, like a PowerPoint transition on art and have, oh, here comes the art sliding in from the left and this one's sliding in from the right and this one's spinning onto the screen. You can't do that because it's lazy, it's sloppy, and even if the art is outstanding, like what else are you going to say about it besides that? So production value needs to go up, or I don't remember who made this post. This is a post I saw a while ago. Or intros are just going to stop. I think people, yeah, I think it's going to get to a point where, like, so I'll use Phobia again as an example. At some point, I could see Dom being like, "Hey guys, Phobia is coming out in 2 days. Here's the roster. Here are the teams." And then he'll tweet that out or maybe the Phobia UHC Twitter, which is a separate entity. My bad.
Yes, of course.
We'll tweet out the tab list, right? And then everyone will be like, "Oh, I'm so hyped to see these people play. I'm so hyped to see these people play," because in the long run, sometimes intros aren't worth it really because of how long they take. Like you could I'm trying to think what Ambition season was recently, but we waited forever. It wasn't for renders. It was because Turi was like very busy. The intro just took very long, so we were waiting a while. And then at that point, like when do I get this footage? Because people just want their footage off the computer, and with people like that, those people that don't put the intro in their footage, which is something I'm guilty of doing. Like I just want it off my computer so I can have more space for other stuff. So if I'm just uploading it, I don't know if I can wait for the intro for however long, because I only have so much recording space. So it's like if the production value is going to be good, and if like if the players have to wait super long, I don't know how much longer intros are going to last. If that makes sense at all, I don't know. I just rambled.
Yeah, I agree. I know, I agree, and it's a shame. There's always there's always going to be those people who say like, oh, the intros don't matter; they're the least important part, and my brain kind of agrees. It's like it's the round. It is the least important part. But then at the same time, like I really like watching intros, and like as someone who isn't super connected to the community, and I'm not like actively playing UHC, and I'm not actively watching rounds. I still I still really enjoy watching intros. So that's why I always find it a shame when you see it becoming less kind of prioritized, even though I do understand it, but I do think it is still a very important part, to me at least, about RRs.
Well, I know there's definitely a handful of rounds. I'm sorry, you can continue.
There you go.
I know there's definitely a handful of rounds that that I've heard of, and again, this could always be rumor, and I don't know what I'm talking about, but where they just canceled the season because they waited too long for an intro, and they couldn't get an intro maker. But there's so many people making intros now where you'd think that wouldn't be a problem, but you really have to people really are it's a lot of waiting time really.
Yeah, there's a lack of people, but I really think that if someone has the time and really wants to, they should definitely try to get into production, not as general and start making for every round, but if there's one round they really like, or they're organizing one round, it's always worth trying to do some part of production, either logo or the intro or renders. I think it's always cool to see new people try to do stuff for the round. It makes the things different, even if sometimes they may not be the best at first. It's always cool to see people putting work into their own round and improving over time.
Yeah, it's always great seeing new people trying it. And there's lots of transferable skills of editing and art and that kind of stuff. So it's always nice to see people improve. But yeah, I'm sure it will. I feel like we are seeing it become less and less important, which is a shame. But I don't know how much that's going to change. I feel like there's going to be still some rounds that very much prioritize it, like Paradox. We're seeing still very much prioritizes good production, but a lot won't, and I think that's how it is. I don't really see it changing.
Mm-hmm.
I think if intros not being a thing starts to become a norm, then probably at least my interest in rounds will die. because I don't really have fun playing recorded rounds. I don't watch recorded rounds. I just like the intros because they're cool. I feel like if that becomes de-emphasized, then I'll probably just fade out.
Yeah, I'm in the same boat as you, Hannah.
Yeah. No, I completely feel that. My motivation to have any like being caught up with recorded rounds is very strongly linked to the fact that there's a simple format for me to figure out what's going on in a certain round. Now, obviously, that doesn't mean I'll know exactly what happens in a season, but I can look at an intro and get a good feel for what is there, and I just won't be able to do that if recorded round intros ever phase out. And
So-
with that being said, it is 3 o'clock, so I do have to go now. So thank you for having me.
I was say, I'm pretty sure there are some people here who need to go. So
Yeah, so thank you
I
for
think
having
I
me.
mean I think we're
and
pretty much
good
done. I
luck.
think with the production discussion. I don't know.
Yeah.
what
So, yeah,
else
we can-
would
we can
be.
wrap this
Okay,
Yeah.
guys, before we end off the podcast here,
we're not
I'll be
ending the
taking-
podcast yet. What are you, Lego?
I do want to apologize for not talking much during the whole section. I didn't really have a lot to add, so I was just
No, that's
patiently
cool. That's
listening.
It's fine. It's fine. It's all
It's all
good.
good.
All right.
Sorry for leaving to get a bagel halfway through that.
Okay,
It's fine.
now that Hannah said
Sorry
her
that my
thing,
dog
and
was
thanks for
barking
watching the
earlier.
podcast today,
We're
guys.
not ending the podcast yet. I will keep streaming.
You can end the podcast.
Yeah, we'll
No, I'm talking about ending it like permanently. Like this is it.
This is the last episode.
All
It's
right,
not for you,
I'm
HC.
also going to have to head out soon. But before I go, I will take one question from the chat. Not yours, Lenboy. That's an inappropriate question. Wait for one question, then I will bounce out of here. Oh, Kel's first.
Kel gets the question.
All right, Kel, what's your question?
We'll use this moment to just we'll wrap up
Ooh,
the.
sorry, Kel. Your question was beat out by Bobby's question of who the fuck wins. I always win. I've never lost. I only win. Yeah. So yeah, thank you for having me on this one as well, Dom. But
Thanks for
yeah.
being here.
all right, thanks for listening, guys. Have fun with the rest
The
of the
podcast is not over yet.
So yeah.
So,
Okay,
anyways, thank you guys for tuning into the whole podcast. That
we're
was
not
it.
done the podcast yet. Don't tell people the podcast's over, because people will then leave, and people will miss the fun Q&A.
You should like post in the recorder on Discord again, saying we're doing a Q&A. Come ask us
I
questions.
will do in a second. Yeah, we're gonna use this moment to as people
End the podcast?
as people head out. We'll use this moment to wrap up the production talk, which I thought was very
Of the
entertaining. And we will not end the podcast. We will instead move on to doing the RRQ and A like we did last time. So basically, I'll try and keep track of it because there was so many last time. If people have any questions related to RR stuff, we can give you some answers. We'll give you our thoughts. Might have some discussion points on them, but we might also lose your topic because many people had a lot of questions last time.
I do actually have a question. Is the podcast over now?
Yes.
It is not over. It is not
All
over.
right. Well, I gotta go. Good
Well,
night.
Good
Peace
night.
out, America.
Well, yeah, I know you gotta go. Let me just remind the RR Discord. Let's check if there's any questions. How would you recommend
just check.
improving on Prospect? Not have spec spoiling and blatantly terrible etiquette. It's not like It's not like a thing where it's like there's a nuanced way to do it. It's like no, there was like clearly some really terrible, stupid things that happened that shouldn't have happened in the first place.
Does Prospect have a concept?
I don't think so. I think they just wanted to do Gold Rush because it's funny prospect word.
I don't think
Probably.
sounds specifically need a concept, but yeah. in
Yeah.
I
terms
don't
of
think they
improving
need,
things,
but
I
it
would
just made it
personally say,
confusing with
like,
season 2.
I would
No
just
concept.
say
no,
like
yeah.
if people have like messed up, if people are like messed up, as people have said, like with spec spoiling stuff, I'd say those people like you either give them a stern warning and say like don't do that again, or like the people may have to be removed, like because like clearly they're not like there for the etiquette and everything, and they're just not the right people to. They're not the right people who should play recorder rounds. Because I think most of the complaints about Prospect in this podcast seem to be regarding like the spec spoiling and like the etiquette and things. So I think this should be like a stern reminder of like what your round is about. I guess is that
Yeah.
good advice?
Yeah,
I don't know.
the only problems that Prospect really had was game mode choice was shite.
Oh, it's terrible.
Just think about the game mode a bit more next time. Just choose a better one. It's not
okay, so
when you're compared to Gold Rush, it's not that hard.
I don't think we mentioned this when we were talking about it earlier, but it was also double gold. So it meant that the people who were full gold were getting melee rushed by the full diamonds and then dropping 15 gaps.
Yeah, I do remember watching James's perspective at one point, and then seeing he had like a bunch of gold armor and then like mega tons of golden apples, and I was like,
he dropped 15 gaps. I think it's just Bottom Prospect was just terrible game mode choices, and just need to enforce some punishments on the people who broke rules. It's not too tricky. Yeah, it's really about it for Prospect, honestly.
Wolfish is saying the issues and it's dependent on the prefix pro.
What else could you do for Prospect?
It's tricky.
I don't know what that really means.
Yeah, that really confused.
It's okay. Moving on. Do you prefer rounds with all recognizable faces or rounds with very new faces? Mixture of both, I think, really is like.
If you have too many new faces, it's you get lost in the roster and you don't really know where to watch. Or
as much as it's nice to just be like, hey, everyone, we love seeing all these new people in the community. It's like if you have a roster of no one recognizes, people just won't really watch it, and it's kind of tragic. People are just more drawn to the familiar faces, more popular players. Yeah, it's usually a mixture of both does quite nicely, because you have those people you can rely on to get some attention to your round, and then also you can maybe push that attention on some other people who are new and don't have it. You can maybe put a little spotlight on them.
I think the most, at least the run I remember that most recently that the somewhat new roster was Notorious, which major part of the roster was new because they're mostly all from the Apollo community.
Mm-hmm.
But Andrew did get a few people he has connections from the Clubhouse Discord mostly.
That seemed to be pretty well received as well, from what I saw at least.
Yeah, decently well received, I remember. If it wasn't poorly received, I don't think it was that.
And like some people from that group started getting into more rounds and being more recognizable, like Loaf, for example.
I've seen Loaf's name popping about a couple times. I didn't even know he was until Joey's group, and I've seen his name about the place, and it's interesting character development, the growth.
Character development.
The growth of Loaf.
The growth of Loaf. From the RR nobody to the man of the hour.
I think you missed a question, by the way, Dom.
Yeah, I skipped over because that is an RR Roundup question. Kel.
Oh, okay.
You fool. The RR Roundup is over. We are talking about general trivia. I will not give my thoughts on Mythical Seasons 4, despite the fact that information post gave me a headache. What are the questions? Best way to attract attention from viewers towards a round. Stand out.
But how?
I mean, I think again we were saying it. I think intros do actually make a big deal. I think they make a really big deal on whether you stand out or not, and whether that should be the case. I think it is the case. If you have a really, really good looking intro, people are going to pay attention.
It really depends.
Just like a good movie poster or a trailer,
I've always considered intros to be similar to trailers in a way, because like most people put their intros out first as a way to like hype up the round and things, especially if it's like a new round. That's like the best way to get it out there. Like if you just see season 1 episode 1 on the subreddit without any kind of like trailer or intro, you just start thinking you're probably gonna ignore it, or maybe you'll like check it to see if anyone you know is playing, but that's about it.
Yeah.
But like if you want to like stand out and get new people in, honestly, like a trailer or an intro is the best way to do it. Like it doesn't have to affect everyone's view on the entire season, but if you want to get new people interested from the get-go, posting an intro or a trailer is a good idea in my opinion, at least.
It depends what audience you're trying to attract, because if you're trying to attract Reddit people, then yeah, an intro is a good idea. But if you're trying to just get as many people to watch your recorded round as possible, then you could just invite every YouTuber.
I don't know if that's good advice.
It's just like
I
posted
don't
on social
know
media and such.
if
I don't know. Just
I don't know if
do more
I'd
advertising.
recommend that.
People at this point only like
Obviously,
gonna
we're talking
watch
about
specific
the
people
Reddit.
or only like out of the perspective. Like
I
for the time that UEC's been like going on and like recording rounds exist, like I think most people are getting tired of watching people caving at least, and mostly only care for the PvP at this point.
It's one of those things I think is a greater scheme, which kind of the thought of it looped back when previously talking about the intros and the renders and all that. It's very easy for people who don't care about intros or don't care about PvP to say you shouldn't care about intros or you shouldn't care about PvP. It's easy to just say that. In reality, it's a lot harder to put it into practice because it is evident by the attention things get on the subreddit and the discussion in not just the RR Discord, in other places as well, that people do care about intros. People do care a lot about PvP. PvP tends to be the focal point of a lot of rounds because there's admittedly not a whole lot to talk about in terms of commentary. It's easy to kind of pick apart like what PvP good in a round or what makes PvP bad. Commentary is like mostly subjective. Obviously, there's people who like just don't talk, and that's like objectively poor commentary. But what one person enjoys watching in that regard is something different for someone else. It's easy to get on the same wavelength about a PvP than to talk about commentary, and people don't really particularly. I think people have significantly decreased interest in commentary. There are definitely people who excel in that and who can put the excitement back into commentary. But a lot of people just go like, all right, like how's the fights though? And that's just how things are. It's not like a putting my feelings on and being like, oh, you shouldn't feel that way. I'm just describing what literally happens. This is literally how people watch rounds.
Because obviously we're talking about what gets people interested. It's simply basically what is easier to find is what is going to be what interests people. So intros and trailers and stuff, they you just watch a quick video and that's what people do, and then you can see whether you're interested or not. When it comes to fights, you can skip through a video and find when someone's fighting and watch a fight. When it comes to commentary, you have to be committed to watching the video because you don't know when good commentary moments are going to be. You don't know when certain things are going to happen. And when it's commentary, you can't just skip to a point and just hope that something funny happens. So that's why you tend to see less people interested, I think.
Yeah, because I noticed that Cooter also asked the question about I think it kind of relates to the question of how do you feel like teasers.
Just before I have to leave, so thank you for having me.
Thanks for being on.
Yeah, see ya.
As I've always made clear, it's not the RR podcast without people leaving midway through. It's a tradition at this point. It's got to happen.
You can put the TV back to normal size.
I don't have a normal size version of the Arc. The only version I have now is the stretch TV. So we're just gonna be sitting comfortably in this enormous television screen. But it kind of relates a lot to Kahooter's question about how do you feel about teasers and rounds. We've answered a lot of that already. Teasers can be good. Intros are surefire good ways of teasing. It's just like you drop the intro, you get excited. Beyond that, teasers can be a little tricky to manage. If they hit, they hit. If they miss, oh fuck, do they miss?
It depends how drawn out they are, I think.
Yeah.
And that was the mistake that I've seen a lot is when, you see recently a lot of these kind of slowly teasing each player or slowly teasing a team or something like that. And I think they're cool. They're cool on paper, but I think the problem is people aren't. People get distracted, and people, their minds aren't set on like one thing. So when you have this kind of drawn out over like a month of teasing, people just get uninterested. They're just like, okay, I get that this round's coming out, and I don't really care anymore because I've already been seeing parts of it for ages. It needs to be kind of a short and sweet.
I think it's the problem that I've noticed with people who do teasers like that. Long teasers of like players and teams over a prolonged period of time, they are not good for building an audience or building hype. They are good at maintaining the audience and hype you already have. Stuff like that tends to work for a lot of bigger rounds because due to the fact that they've had more time, more seasons, people already have a decent investment in them off the get-go. So you just maintaining that hype across a long period of time, people can stay with that. If you have a round that has little hype and little interest, or has had not a lot of time to build that, it just feels long. You're just people who aren't invested just being forced to go through this long period to get to something they might or might not be invested in. It doesn't build interest. It's just a good way of teasing the people you already have invested. But if people aren't invested, they really do not care.
Yeah,
Really
like you
don't.
see that. Yeah, you see that with stuff like MC Ultimate and stuff, and they have those kind of team things, and it works really well for those because obviously there's people who are like waiting to see certain people. So when they see that, they get on their edge and they're like, yeah. But obviously, again, with a small little community, it does just get a bit like, it's cool, but I just don't have time to really like be keeping up to date with stuff like that.
Yeah.
So I just tend to not be interested.
Yeah, it's all about handling it correctly. Also, Joey's gone, so the
Just-
Q&A's got a bit smaller.
Just post a picture of Shade and Ellie on Twitter the day before an intro comes out.
Yeah,
That's what I do for Casino. Yeah, and it works out.
I had JB have a real yell at me because I handled the season 15 trailers for Phobia, and it was just blacked out art. He was furious at me about that one. I thought I handled it like okay, but at its core, it's still just blacked out art.
Yeah, I mean, it works for Phobia because people care about Phobia.
Yeah.
But blacked out art is never going to be something groundbreaking or super exciting.
You need to. That's what I think. It is just. I think it really just comes down to how brief it is. I think like one trailer a few days before the intro is cool, or a week before the intro, or maybe one or two kind of teasers for players. I'm not saying teasers for players are bad. It's just when they take a long time to happen, and when it takes like almost like I've seen some rounds that honestly it's like a month for teasers, and it's like it's just too much.
If it's like a month for teasers, I won't be excited for the round. I'll be excited for the teasers to stop.
Like we're finally getting the intro. Thank God.
I timed out. Did I miss anything?
Just talking about teasers.
I was gonna say something, and then I think I timed out. Like just as I started talking. I was gonna say that I don't really like the long drawn out stuff. I think it's not that good. I'd much rather just either one video for a trailer, one video for an intro, or one image saying with the logo saying this is coming soon, get excited, and like that's it. Like you just need one of the you just need one of those three at least, and like that's all you need to get me like excited or interested. Really, like you don't like really long drawn out things of like renders in black and like darkened out renders and just things like that. That doesn't excite me, and that honestly just feels boring and slow to me. It doesn't do anything, in my opinion. That's just my. I mean, maybe I just have like low interest in recorded rounds compared to other people. I don't know, but like that's just my opinion. Like if anything, I miss when recorded rounds just kind of came out of nowhere. Like that's one thing I try and do with Pathfinder is I don't tend to do trailers or many intro releases for Pathfinder. I tend to just like throw them out of nowhere to try and like catch people off guard. I think that gets people excited sometimes, especially if it's like a round that has a good few seasons to it. But in general, just like rounds where it's like long durations, as Hannah said, like I'm like, wait, have any of those things actually gone on for like a month?
That's what. Yeah, I was saying I've seen that.
Have any of those actually gone on for months?
I've definitely seen like
I've
ones
seen,
that
I've seen one that's
like because if so, that's way too long.
Was...
Like maybe a week at most. Like no more.
But yeah, what you're saying, Joe, is basically what I was saying. Yeah, I agree completely.
Oh, I didn't. I really didn't.
I'm not. I don't mean you were. I don't mean you were reiterating.
Yeah.
When you were saying when you were saying like it's just me, or I was like, no, I completely agree with that.
Yeah.
There was a period in like the non-Reddit RR Discord where there would be like a bunch of blacked out renders, and then finally the intro would come out, and then right after that season came out, they would post more blacked out renders, so it was just like permanent teaser. Not pleasant.
Don't like the sound of that. This is gross. Fun question. What are your thoughts on the most recent PvP snapshot released by Jeb on Twitter?
I have no idea what's in it.
It doesn't
Let's
look
talk
good.
about
It
Minecraft
doesn't.
combat.
No, it doesn't look good at all from what
I
I've
have
seen.
no idea what's in it, so
So
I
They
have
at
no.
least they at least removed coyote time. The coyote
What the hell
time
is
was
no?
terrible.
No, wait. What even is that? What?
Coyote time is it's kind of a, it's not like the official term for it. It's basically even for like when you swing something,
Yeah.
like when you swing a weapon at a
Yeah.
mob, it still kind of remembers for like a couple of ticks even after you swing off the hitbox. So it's like if you like if you like tilt your like head slightly off a zombie and like you like swing your sword like half a second after you were on its hitbox, it will still hit the zombie. Problem is, you could in theory flick your mouse like fast enough that you could do a 180 and still hit the mob.
Oh.
You could just turn around and still hit the thing you were looking at
Good.
previously.
Hacked clients are coming into the meta of Minecraft.
Yeah.
I see.
They got rid of that.
Have you seen what they did to the bow though?
What did they do to the bow?
Okay, so let me read this out, right? Bow and arrow accuracy now slowly decreases the longer you pull the bow.
What?
That's terrible.
That sounds so cool.
That sounds
that sounds
not
like
fun.
okay, that sounds like garbage.
So
But also,
basically, it
might
means
not matter.
yeah.
It's so realistic.
It means that if you're holding your bow like past, I'm assuming past its full, charge, it's gonna slowly and slowly get more. Which means you're gonna have to like shoot so quickly that you're just not gonna have time to aim. You're not gonna have time to do anything. You're just gonna be like,
You're just blind firing basically.
yeah.
I mean,
Bow spam.
most of the time when you're holding down your bow for a long period of time, it's like super close range, like behind a wall anyway.
Mm-hmm.
It shouldn't matter that much depending on how drastic it is.
Also, the
Yeah, I know, I
one
see.
other major notable thing I know from this combat test is I'll take it from here. Eating is now interrupted if something hits you.
What?
So that's keep note
yeah.
that is not like any damage ticks. So if you're in like lava or something, you could still eat. It is when one entity or player hits you. If
I
you're
kind of
eating,
like
it interrupts it.
It's a bit like Gap Zap, except obviously instead of once you've already eaten it, it's more when you're eating it.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I like it. It's gonna be hard to say how it'll affect things. I mean, I hate chugging, but so maybe it'll make absorption less of an awful thing. But
I don't like the idea that if you're running away and trying to heal, the enemy can just say no.
Yeah, it
And
seems
just shoot you.
the strategy in particular seems to be a lot less because as much as chugging kind of sucks, chugging is at least kind of an aggressive strategy in that you are still close and you can still fight back immediately. In this, if you want to heal, you have to run away. Like you can't just like tank a hit or so to stay within a close range. You have to run away.
I think they're definitely trying to make fights quicker. Is what they're trying to do. Is make it like, because that was one of the big arguments against 1.12 is that it was too slow, right? Like everything just took a bit too long.
It was definitely
from what I'm
slower,
seeing, from what I'm seeing, like a lot of these changes are definitely pushing the idea that they want fights to be brisk and they don't want them to be overdrawn, and it wants to be to like a if you mess up, then that's it, kind of you're done. Which I'm not if I'm a big fan, but I can't really say unless you try it out.
It sounds like a bad addition to UHC because from what I'm hearing, it sounds like you can't really eat your healing, meaning you can't really drain someone. So it's going to be a lot more snowbally.
Yeah. This is always one of those things where it's like, do you think these changes are going to actually affect? Do you think this will kind of get everybody to update? Because there's always that argument, right? It's like, and it is true, regardless of whether you prefer 1.8 combat, it is getting stale. When nothing changes, regardless of the combat, it is going to get stale. And when they first started doing these combat tests, there was definitely interested. Like, I wonder if this will kind of make people start switching.
They've managed.
I don't know.
Looking at the combat test, they have managed to get a surprisingly good middle ground between 1.8 and 1.9. In that it seems to just primarily be that 1.8 style melee and fighting is completely viable, but the 1.9 plus style of timing is like the optimal way, which I think is a good balance. In that you could just play 1.8 style and you will do like completely fine. But if you want to get like the absolute most out of it, absolute like the absolute most. You gotta do timing stuff.
Yeah, the problem is it's so I think making people kind of give Mojang a lot of shit, and I don't think they've done a fantastic job with not with doing it. I don't think they did a fantastic job at addressing it really, but it is really tough to make a combat system that is going to work for mobs in like survival and PvP because they just work so differently.
Oh yeah,
They just
absolutely.
such different entities. It's a big task to do that.
Yeah, the other interesting thing actually from this combat test is apparently shields now again let through a little bit of melee damage. So yeah, previous when the system was originally introduced, shields 100% block projectiles but let a little bit of melee through, and then they 100% protected all projectiles and melee, and now seems to be reverting to 100% projectiles. Some melee gets through.
I'll be honest. I'll be honest. I've never liked shields. I know a lot of people kind of when they talk about the new combat, they talk about the hit delay. I don't think the hit delay is really that big of a deal because there already is a bit of a hit delay in 1.8. It's just not kind of on the screen hit delay. I think the shields are what that kind of stopped me from being interested in 1.12. I know there's still a big community with the new PvP.
Yeah,
I think for me the reason I wasn't particularly interested is just because it felt like the shields made it too melee focused. Because if someone's beating you in bow, you can just hold a shield and force them to kind of come up to you. And I think that's the biggest issue with it for me.
That's
I
definitely
think there
something
is
I've
some
noticed.
strategy in it to those people who are quite patient with like combat, but for those people who are like much more like aggressive and like fast paced, it maybe isn't for them. And for those people who just like, I mean, you're gonna get really bored just kind of shooting at someone if they're just holding a shield. It's like
I think crossbows remedy a lot of the problems with shields and bow. Because you can just have a bow and a crossbow and fight them normally, and then if they just hold their shield, pull out your crossbow, and get some free hits.
The problem with that is there's no public UHC plugin for that version. The highest it goes up to is like 1.12. There's no 1.13 public plugin, so no one can really host it. I think C-Money has one, but I'm pretty sure it's private, so no one else can really host it unless someone makes a public one.
I think also the main problem with the main problem with switching to the current version of the game is just from what I could be able to tell, the server optimization for these versions has been bad. A lot of the reasons why people stick with 1.12 for future versions isn't just because of that, but it's also because past 1.12 it gets really laggy. Like it gets,
which is interesting.
1.15
supposed to fix that?
Yeah, 1.15 is like the best version for that, and it's still like a problem. Like it's still pretty bad. Like people have been releasing clips from a failed take of ultrahardcore, which we played in 1.15, and it was laggy for the whole season. We used a server we used the actual hardcore server, the server they were using to host the SMP, which was a beefy server. But it would lag non-stop during the season to the point where, like, literally no exaggeration, half the game had their seasons ruined due to lag. Like, lag would just fuck them over, including myself. So it was really unfortunate to see just how poorly it handles actually playing games.
It does feel
even like 1.16. I think 1.16 is also an improvement over 1.15, but it's still also not fantastic.
It does feel like it's been getting worse in terms of server optimization. It's been getting worse since like 1.7. Because I remember 1.7 was the version that you could have like those 100-player UH, like hundreds of players UHCs, and it generally, as long as the server was good enough, it generally was fine. That's obviously like when Badline kind of took off because these massive UHCs. And I feel like with the new versions, you see it less and less capable of handling that many players at one time.
Yeah, it's kind of a tragedy because I really want to play in a UHC with like a lot of the current content, like especially Nether. Nether will be a very interesting thing to tackle, but it just does not seem like something that can be feasibly done currently.
Yeah, it's I'm not sure.
Yeah. If anything was to get me back into playing UHC actively, it would be playing it in like 1.16.
And I'm surprised actually how I'm surprised that it hasn't been a bigger priority, to be honest, the server optimization, because that's really been how a lot of how Minecraft's kind of got this big surge again. You know, with stuff like SMP Live, and it's just, and I mean, Minecraft has always been popular with friends. So I'm surprised that isn't what they're really prioritizing, to be honest.
Yeah, just tragic thing to see. Yeah, I don't think we have any questions right now, so I'm just going to do a one last minute push to anyone watching if they have any questions, because we actually have run out of questions. We're not, like last time, stuck behind a long list. Let's wait a little bit, probably answer one or two more, and then we will actually end it. Not the fake ending that happened like 20 minutes to half an hour ago.
So what's the next topic?
Renders or something? I don't know.
Renders round 2. We're going to talk about renders again.
We're gonna just replay the podcast. You just get the audio up and play that again.
So good they
Much
played
easier.
it twice.
So good.
But is that actually where we're ending up for today?
The next topic,
RR awards.
But Ofish, the next topic is not the RR awards. It's still a work in progress, though it is actually coming on quite nicely now. We'll get there. Need to find the part about paranormal.
It was one of the first rounds we talked about. So yeah.
I mean, I can just give you a rundown again about the what the thoughts on paranormal were. I think nice presentation, nice roster. Season looks nice so far. Actually, no, this is done now. Actually, I thought it was one that's still going on. It was okay. Good season, good interesting production, good intro. Game mode was stupid.
It was stupid, but it was funny.
It was funny, but also just seemed like more of a nuisance, and just existed to purely be a nuisance, which I don't think is a good way to do game modes.
I was saying, I think what I said was that I like the sound thing. I just wasn't a fan of the flower burning, kind of removing it.
Yeah, it was like it feels really inconsequential. Unless you chose to ignore it, then it was fucking miserable.
I think it's actually okay. I think it just needed something else. You know, I don't think it works that well on its own. But with
I think it probably would have done better as a complementary game mode.
Yeah.
Not the one you carry the season on.
Yeah.
When will T-Firm be on the podcast?
Next week.
I hope not. I hope he doesn't barge his way in. I hope we're not just filming the podcast and he just pops in and starts going ape.
He's actually on a plane to Scotland right now.
Oh fuck!
He's coming, and you can't do anything about it.
No, I need to get the T-Firm out of my head. Gotta escape the T-Firm. All right, I think we can actually wrap it up now. I think we can officially end the RR podcast at a comfortable 2.5 hours.
Thanks for having me.
Thanks for being on. Big thanks to Joey and Lego for showing up. Big thanks to our guests, the ones that are here, Hannah and Tiago, and the ones that are not here, Brody and Kyle.
We don't like those two.
We do not like those two.
Yeah.
Big thanks to everyone who's tuned in. Viewers were very nice this one. We had average of 30 for a good while. Pretty exciting. Don't know why you chose to watch.
When are you getting affiliate, Dom?
You got to stream 7 days a month, and if I'm doing the podcast like this, I've got 2 of those days.
Dom, what happens if the Record of Our Own podcast gets partnered, and we start earning money from this? When
you say we when I start earning money from this.
I better get a cut, bro. I didn't talk about renders for free.
When I start earning money from
we
this.
were just talking about how render makers don't get paid enough, so now you're trying to skimp out on the podcast guest. Come on, dude.
Also going to run through all these. Thanks to hold on. Get an advertisement from some random website, probably at some point. We'll get
Raid Shadow Legends. We talked about it earlier.
We're gonna get sponsored by Dollar Shave Club or some shit. Just gonna run through this real fast. Thanks to everyone who followed during the podcast. That is Lenners, Loaf, Hannah, Kel, Will, Wax, Fang, Josh, Lego, Pelly, 4-Bit, Cooter, Frost, Jay, Change, Chloe, Rory, Len, and Crypto. really furious that Lego didn't follow me until this podcast. Kind of upset beyond belief.
I haven't followed you yet.
I'll excuse it. Oh, thanks
Shall I
for
do
following,
it?
my Chris. There we go. Pop through. This is the moment where the streamer plugs Twitch Prime, but in this case it's just, hey guys, can you follow me, please? Joey,
Yeah,
do not plug Twitch Prime in chat. You monster.
Subscribe to the Sonic Joey with Twitch Prime.
Twitch Prime is
follow
pretty great,
Kazmik,
I'll be
Join
honest.
the Recorded Round Discord. Subscribe to the Ultra Hardcore subreddit. Download Raid Shadow Legends.
Hell yeah. Yeah, just plug in the general stuff. Hop on the RR. I'd be shocked if people.
Can't
here
wait
watch
for when
more than
Raid
our
Shadow
Discord.
Legends is on the podcast.
I'm still not convinced that anyone in this mortal realm has played Raid Shadow Legends.
I'm going to look
I
up.
don't believe it's a game.
I've seen gameplay for it. It is just a mobile game. It's just a mobile like a
Let's
kind of-
play.
It doesn't look
Raid
anything like
Shadow
it doesn't.
Legends
From what I've seen, it doesn't
Episode
look anything like what I've actually seen. Like
I
from
presume
the
that
advert.
none of the adverts are at all indicative of Raid Shadow
because
Legends.
because
It's
they
a
always say
mobile
like
game.
there's kind of it's like a big MMORPG, but just like how much can you do on a mobile game? No, man.
GTA
It's not
San
possible.
Andreas.
Just slam GTA
I've
on your
posted
phones.
the video in chat that everyone should be watching.
We just plug in some random person playing Raid now.
Yep.
I also would like to plug the Lampoon UHC Season 3 montage. Check it out. Thank
Shout out
you.
to Lampoon. That's
Yeah.
a good deserving shout out. Oh, actually, I do have some shout outs actually. Jamie asked me to give a shout out to Brent. So, shout out to Brent. And also, Ripper asked me, shout out to Tarzan. Shout out to
Which
Tarzan.
Which Tarzan?
I don't know. I'm just shouting out people. I'm just shouting out people who I'm told to shout out. I'm
Tom,
just
can I
a
get a
mindless
shout
shout
out?
out sheep. Yeah, I know a shout out, Joey. You can get a shout out,
Can
Joey.
I have it? Yeah, okay. Do it.
Shout out to
Shout out
Unknown
Joey.
UHC.
Give me a shout out.
Not.
Shout out to Joey.
Thank
Yeah.
you. At least someone appreciates me. and
I
shouts
shouted
me
you out twice.
out. You did. No, you didn't. I
I
didn't hear
said
you.
shout out Joey. Shout out Joey.
No, that's
Shouted
no.
you out.
No,
Is the
no,
two that
no,
important?
No, you do shout out to Joey, not shout out Joey.
Okay.
You're not telling people to shout out my name.
Okay. Shout out to the Sonic Joey.
Shout out
to
Jamie in the corner of the screen having a fun
Shout
time.
out to Ghost Jamie.
Yeah, why is Jamie there?
He's having a fun time.
He's floating between this plane of existence and the next, and by plane of existence I mean England and Turkey. He's doing something. He's doing his own thing. We don't have proper art for him, so I just put the phobia on there. He's chilling. All right, enough bullshitting. We're gonna end the
Goodbye.
podcast now. Thanks everyone who tuned
Goodbye.
in. It was a great time. We'll see you either next week or in 2 weeks for a Roundup episode. It will be hell. I hope everyone's excited for it. Hope you have a good rest of your days. Everyone say bye.
Thank you for being here, everyone.
Bye-bye.
Thanks for giving me a platform to spout my nonsense.
You're welcome. Don't know if it was a good decision in hindsight, but we did it anyway. All right. I'm going to go click the end stream button now.